Okay, I want to call this meeting to order of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of Airmont. I'd ask everybody to please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then I just want to make a few comments.
Sure. Member DeFrancesco?
Here.
Member Piccarelli?
Here.
Member Meyer?
Here.
Member Katz?
Here.
New ad hoc member Carbone?
Here.
New ad hoc member Ryan?
Here.
Chairman Cavell?
I'm here.
Just making sure.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments that have nothing to do with the zoning aspect of tonight's agenda, but on a personal note, Michael Bernstein, our long-standing chairman, has retired from the zoning board. And for the record, I want to thank his, I don't even know how many years, it's well over 10 as chairman and as a member, you know, so many more years than that. And I want to thank him for his dedicated and honest service to this village and to the community of Airmont. I also want to welcome Linda Carbone as an ad hoc member to this board. Scott Meyer, you were already here, but I'll re-welcome you as a member.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ryan, what is your first name?
Matt.
Matt, forgive me. See, I'm not
And
too embarrassed
it's a
to
little
ask.
confusing, Marty, because our village planner is also Matt Ryan.
I kept looking.
So how am I going to do this? How are we
Well,
going to do
he's
this?
Matt Ryan zoning and then Matt Ryan's planning
Well,
board.
we'll have to figure it out. I want to
What is that,
welcome,
Matthew?
I want to welcome you both to the zoning board, and as ad hoc members, feel free, as regular members, to ask any questions you want of the applicant and or of members of the public that may have questions. And in the absence of a regular member, you'll be called upon to be voting members from time to time. Oh, way in the back, I'll give a shout out to former Zoning Board of Appeals member Peter Blunny, who is now acceded to the high office of village trustee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the approval, did people have a chance to look at the minutes?
Only 3 of you can approve them because the others weren't here.
The 3 would be,
Yourself, Mr. Piccarelli, and Mr. Katz,
right.
because of the 2 new members and 2 that were missing.
Just give me
Oh,
30 seconds here. And, okay. Charles and Mr. Katz. Do you have any, you need another minute?
Nope, just got
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Am I jumping the gun?
No, not at all.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The minutes are accepted as presented. All right, we're gonna skip to, item 7 first, and, 7. We're gonna start with, number 7. It's a little bit, I would imagine, less complex than number 5, and then we'll go to number 6. And then number 5, representation on all 3 cases, is the same. Mr. Carpenter. All right, number 7 is a public hearing. It is the application of Morris Lefkowitz, to receive a variance from Article 2, Section 210-35C, to authorize the existing front yard fence. The current fence provides 6 feet where 3.5 feet is permitted, which is 2.5 feet above the foot height requirement. A variance from Article 2, Section 210-37 is also required for a corner lot side portion of the fence abutting Lorna Lane. The property is located on the east side of Frontier Lane, approximately 0 feet south of South Lorna Lane. The lot is designated as Section 62.05, Block 1, and Lot 58 on the Town of Ramapo tax map. The property is located in the R40 zoning district and contains 1.11 acres. The street address is 2 Frontier Lane in Airmont. I know you're here, Mr. Parker.
I'm here somewhere.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the description of where the property is. The property is located east side of Frontier Lane, approximately 0 feet south of South Lorna Lane.
Okay.
It is approximately 100 feet, at least, south of South Lorna Lane. It is a flag lot, and as a flag lot, it is approximately 200 feet from the intersection of Frontier and South Lorna, heading east. Because of the screwy way they labeled the lots, the postal destination, the one on the corner is 4, and the one down is 2. Because I'm across the street and I'm on the corner, it's 3, and inward is 1.
Inwards.
Inward, towards the thing. That's why the description should be modified.
That's a big difference, 0 to 100 feet.
Well, it's just, you know, a description of its coordinates, so to speak. Yes, it's a big difference, and
Well, you went out to see it and you had a problem finding it, right?
I certainly did. So I guess the coordinates were wrong and I was wrong. Can we note that?
Yeah, I noted it, but I advertised it based on what I received on the application. And that's how I received it on the application.
Okay.
If you
0
look at-
feet
If you look,
south.
if you look at the map, I mean, it's right there at the corner.
Dan?
Oh, that's why we have it on
Property
page
plus
2
the-
for the application.
South Lorna and Frontier.
We had the
Right.
same issue
Corner
with
lot.
Toyota, Brian.
No, but it's tucked behind the corner.
Yes, but it says the property is located east side of Frontier Lane, approximately 0 feet south of South Lorna Lane. So that would make it a corner lot.
Well, the property line runs along the street.
It runs about 200 feet up from the corner.
It's on the street. South
Yes.
Lorna Lane is the boundary of the property, so it's 0 feet from South Lorna Lane, because South Lorna Lane is a boundary of the property.
It is a boundary of the property, but it's not 0 feet from the corner of South Lorna Lane.
It's not from the
up on
corner
the
is what
street.
he's saying, Ryan.
It's a flag lot.
Right, but this, well, the description doesn't say 0 feet south of the corner of South Lorna Lane. It says it
0
where it
feet
is.
south of South Lorna Lane.
Right, because it's on the boundary of South Lorna Lane, the same way it's on the boundary of any other street. So it cannot, if it has a boundary of South Lorna Lane, and this is just how the reason I put it this way in the application, I don't mean to quibble. If it's on South Lorna Lane, then it's 0 feet from South Lorna Lane. I did not describe its distance from the corner of
Correct.
South Lorna Lane and Frontier, and I don't think the legal description describes it from the corner. I described it in relation to the roadway itself, because it abuts the roadway.
Order.
In other words,
Starting with the third
you
one.
use the property
We're starting
boundary,
with this one.
not where the dwelling is located on the property.
Well, I just filled in the blanks on the application, which doesn't have the word corner. So it's an accurate statement, but not intended to be misleading in any way. And I don't think it is misleading, because if you measure from South Lorna Lane to the property, it's the boundary line. So the notice would be, nothing deficient about the notice.
What do you think, Dan?
That's where the mailbox would typically be located, that's, I would assume. Just looking at the map, this map, yes, it's a flag lot, but has street frontage on the road.
You're talking about this one, Marty?
This is what you meant by less complicated, Mr. Chairman, right?
I thought, I just didn't have enough information.
It's located on the east side, correct? Is that correct?
East side of Frontier,
Mm-hmm.
south
Mhm.
side of
Frontier.
South Florida.
And south side of Lorna. So the only issue is, how many feet is the distance from South Lorna?
No, I think the
From the-
confusion, Dan, is normally when we give a description, we wouldn't say, not that it's wrong, Ryan, 0 South Lorna, we would say from a corner position so we could figure out where the lot is. It would be 60 feet to South Lorna on that, or 100 feet, or 200 feet, which is why it was hard to identify it when you get to the South Lorna to find the property, because that's not it.
You know, I note our application included a vicinity map where the relevant owners were
Yes,
notified, the legal notice was posted. If in the future you wish the applications to include that footage in relation to the corner, I will make sure to do so in the future. Don't want anything to be unclear, and certainly don't want anybody to get lost looking for a property merely because of the zoning variance. So I'll try to be as clear as possible.
I mean, I don't think this rises to the level of the Toyota deficiency being
I
on the
agree
wrong
with
side of the
you.
road. And, you know, I think there's enough information, that was accurate, that if someone was looking for it, particularly, you posted the property as well?
Yes, sir.
And the posting was at the front, not the back.
Yes, I believe the relevant, the respective affidavits were filed with the village. And I would also know, Mr. Kresher, that, you know, that this is a situation where the only lots that are affected by this are this lot and the other lot. So,
Well, that
you know,
may be the case, but there's, when it comes to the notice, that really has to be, in a manner that anyone who's interested would be able to locate it. So that's of less importance to me than, the fact that, it was posted.
well, I didn't say it was important to you, it was important to me.
Okay, that's fine. My personal feeling is sufficiently descriptive, not perfectly descriptive, but to the point where it's de minimis.
going forward.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Charles, for pointing that out. Okay, Mr. Parkin, you can have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We're seeking a variance for a fence on the flag lot. As you can see from the survey that we submitted to you, for whatever reason, the property line that runs between this property and the adjacent property is jagged. It does not run straight across. The adjacent property is owned by the Willard Scott of the Hudson Valley Bryson Van Eyck, the famous News 12 weatherman. And we do have a letter from Mr. Van Eyck and Ms. Sullivan, who live at 4 Frontier Lane, that I could read, Mr. Chairman. It's addressed to Egremont Zoning Board of Appeals, and I'll hand it up for your files. And it's the 6-foot chain link fence in front of 2 Frontier Lane runs smoothly along the front of that house rather than following the zigs and zags of the property line. The only property affected by this is our property. There's no objection to the location of the fence as shown on the map prepared by Anthony Celentano Surveyor. We support any other relief requested by our neighbor to permit the fence to remain at its present location. And so this is from Mr. Van Eyck and Ms. Sullivan. And the jagged property line runs between the Leftwoods property and that property. So the code does not
did not permit the fence to run on both property lines. However, because the property line is not a smooth property line, where you run it along the property line, it would not have as attractive an appearance. Also, because of the way you determine the front of a flag lot, even though this fence is not on the road, it is treated for zoning purposes as if it was on the road with respect to the height requirement. So therefore, a fence that would, of course, not necessarily be appropriate running along a public street where there is a home, where you have the home all the way set back in the front and the fence is not intruding on the public street. A higher fence could be appropriate, as would be a side yard fence or a rear yard fence, which the code does permit under those circumstances. So we would respectfully urge the board not to look at this as a front yard fence, but to look at it as one of the other aspects of the fence, because it is so far set back from the roadway and not and not visible from the roadway. Also, it was pointed out to us by Mr. Fontana that as long as he had to write about it, he write about it. That there is a technical status of the street, because even though we are a flag lot and even though we front on Frontier, he also determined that we have, in theory, a corner lot with respect to Lorna Lane. Even though we are not really on the corner, we're partially on the corner, and so therefore we need the permission pursuant to section 210-37 to be able to have the fence around the perimeter of our property. I realize these are highly technical provisions of the code, but nonetheless, our application is before you, and I think being mindful of the balancing test. I'm sorry, congratulations to the new members, and I apologize for the poll, but I'll do the best I can. You can hear me okay? Yeah. You know, applying the balancing test and whether this fence will have a an undesirable change on the character of the neighborhood. I think that as long as it is a matter of agreement between the neighbors that are present, there's really not something that should rise to the level of significant municipal interest. Moreover, I think that given the configuration of the lots, the impact beyond one lot and the other is not discernible anyway, and there really is not any meaningful impact on anybody other than the two lots that are involved here. There's nothing that would suggest that there are environmental or sewage or drainage or traffic impacts that arise from the fencing, and you know, that's reflected in the absence of really any need to explore those issues in meaningful detail. With respect to the question of whether or not the variances are substantial, that's not necessarily a numerical question entirely, but looking at the notion of the fence height and where it is set back from the roadway on the flag lot and what the impact of that variance would be. Again, de minimis impacts on anybody, and I think that to the extent that you're able to preserve a nice fence which runs in a straight direction along what in a more rational reason of the world would actually be the property line, I think that it works for the relevant parties here, and I don't think it's something which has any adverse impact on the public interest. So when you balance the smooth, attractive fence and you weigh whether there are any public impacts at all and what goes on the other side of that scale, I don't think there are sufficient impacts from this particular application that there really isn't much to balance against the willingness of the property owners to work with each other to have continued pleasant and enjoyable maintenance and use of their lots. I thank you for the opportunity to present. Mr. Chairman, congratulations on your elevation, and I certainly join you in thanking Mr. Bernstein, who certainly always treated me with great respect and great dignity, even when we disagreed. I have no reason to expect that from you, Mr. Chairman, given our many years of knowing each other. But nonetheless, it was a great pleasure when Mr. Bernstein was here, and I hope we'll be able to find a way to work together going forward.
I used to know you when I was about 3 or 4 feet taller than you.
Won't be
It
sucked in
happens.
by this.
It
Won't be
happens.
sucked in by this.
I'm getting sucked in, I'm getting sucked in.
Mr. Harmon?
Wait. I got a question for Chairman's prerogative. Mr. Carvin.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. But what is the history, short history of this fence? You know, when did it appear?
Well, the short history, it's not so short, it's about 6 feet high.
Yeah, okay, very good. When did, just a little background here, and this, you know, quote agreement unquote by the, Mr. Van Eck on his property to have it run, you know, well, we'll get into that where it's run,
No.
but what is the history of that?
I think history is that when the fence was installed,
Yeah,
no one was particularly mindful of the fact that the property line didn't go in a straight line, because why would it go like that in the ordinary course if you have a rough idea of where your property goes and it's, and you don't stake it?
how long has it been there?
I don't know.
You don't know. The property owner must know. You represent the property owner. I'm just curious, you know, because this is an after-the-fact request for variance, so I just wanted to know where did it, you know, when, you know?
I'm not sure exactly. I got involved in this matter as a justice court matter probably a year ago.
Okay.
I don't know how long before that, the fence was put up. But the circumstances, I understood them at that time, were that the fence was installed, fence installer put it up, and subsequently the property line was determined to be jagged. Mr. Van Eck, I don't believe owned that home at that time, and so both properties, did he?
Yeah.
I know that our client's property, changed hands, over that period, so I'm not exactly sure when the fence was installed, but I know that when it was installed, it was, without knowledge that it was intruding into the other property line, because why do that? And so, you know, then the question became, come seek relief or uproot the fence and
Yeah.
rejigger it along the property line, and, you know, what purpose would that necessarily serve? We had the chance to speak with Mr. Fontana, at the time that he had issued the violation with respect to the fence because of the height of it, and he viewed it as a, you know, as a technical matter for which we needed to make this, application for relief. In fact, you know, in the justice court said to Judge Riley, no, you know, I don't, you know, it's a technical violation of the code, but I don't think it's something which, you know, was done with malice or seemed to be a very, very big deal. It did take us some time to get our application together, and we are finally here before you seeking the relief.
Okay, but Arthur he had a question first.
Yeah,
And then-
Mr. Carpenter, can you show us on the map exactly where the fence runs? It's right here.
It's written on the chain link.
I believe it's there.
The green line is the fence?
37 feet on the other person's property.
Who's next?
So you have an easement for that, or he's giving you an easement, or what?
He's given us permission. One of the, if the village would want a recorded easement, as a condition, I'm sure that's something that could be accommodated. I don't see that as a problem.
Okay. There's some-
What happens,
Hold it, hold it.
what happens if the new owner comes in and says, I don't want the fence there?
Well, there, you have a number of options. Number one, if there's an easement, runs with the land, it is what it is. A license, depending on the period, with which it runs, it runs with the land. You are not, to be clear, you don't confer a property right in the granting of a variance. You can't grant a variance that allows, you know, that extends to me a right on a piece of property, which the owner of that property is not willing to extend to me. So even if you gave me a variance to run a fence straight down the middle of the guy's house for whatever crazy reason, and it's not okay with him, very nice you gave me the variance, it doesn't do me any good. So the permission of the other property owner is a prerequisite to, you know, us being able to do anything, but it's not something that this board grants us or doesn't grant us. If this guy is allowing us to run the fence there, you know, you're permitting us to have a height which doesn't necessarily comply with your ordinary front yard requirement because it's on the flag lot. But permission to use somebody else's property in a way that they wouldn't approve of, that's not relief that you can grant.
Why do we have to even deal with the fence? It's not on his property. It's not his property, it's not his fence, and what, I mean, what are we talking about?
It's not whose property.
Well, I said, Arthur, you are totally on target.
Oh,
Ryan, you're asking for a variance on a fence that's on someone else's property, and he would have to be asking for the variance because your client doesn't own that property where that fence is. That's number one. And I believe that's what Arthur was getting to. Am I correct,
Yes,
sir?
correct.
The second thing, let me just get these three things out at one point. Who exactly lives in this property? Because Mr. Lefkowitz, the applicant, puts his address down as Bedford Avenue in Brooklyn. So is he residing on this property? Because he doesn't put that down for his application address. He says he's another resident. And the third part is the clarification on the age of this. You're in court, you received a violation. They should have had some kind of stipulation on the violation.
Okay, so with respect to item number one, the fence is on both properties. It's not exclusively on one property or the other property. The violation was issued exclusively against our property. This board, we had to appeal from that determination of the building inspector, who did not violate the other property, because we are the ones who installed the fence, and therefore we are the ones who made the application now for relief. And it was the election of the building inspector and his interpretation of the code with respect to which property is responsible for this, and that is not something which is appealable. You know, that's his determination, that determination stands, and we accept the responsibility that he assigned to this lot to make that application. If the other lot was implicated, I gather the village would have placed them in violation as well, brought them into justice court, gone through the whole process as well. So here the curing process at the direction of Mr. Fontana, and be happy to provide you the correspondence sent to me of Mr. Fontana and his direction that we make this application. And it is his determination and that violation from which we appeal, number one. Number two, the owner of the property is Mr. Lefkowitz. The current resident of the property is Rabbi Glantz and his family. And with respect to question, what was your question number three, Lori?
You talk so quickly, Ryan, I gotta catch up with you. My question number three is.
Oh, the date of when the fence went up. As I said,
Or the date of the violation, give us some kind of, is it a year ago, 3 years ago? What is the date?
Less than 3 years ago, but more than 1 year ago, because I know I've been involved.
Just give us some kind of.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when, but I do not believe that this present owner owned the property 3 years ago, so that would be too far
That's
back.
what I'm trying to
Can
figure
I,
out.
I have a question. Well, you want the floor, Dan?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
No, I was gonna ask you, but please.
The application that's before this board in its present form is not something that this board can act on. What the applicant is asking for, those letters aside, is for a variance on someone else's property that will affect their property rights, that a variance runs with the land, and the variance is caused by the encroachment by the applicants onto the neighbor's property with the fence. And this application properly should be either, I think, more cleanly, a joint application of the two property owners. In the alternative, before the board acts, that we be presented with either an easement with a meets and bounds description or a license agreement. And that license agreement would provide that in the event that the license is ever revoked, that the fence has to be removed off of the property.
I have no problem with that, and we can get that to you, and if that's something the board wishes to have in advance of its consideration, I think that's perfectly fair.
Well, we will have option one.
If you,
Option one can be combined with option two.
that, also fine, as long as, if you permit us to administratively amend the application and add a consent from the additional property owner or another affidavit, whatever 809, amplify that with whatever's required from the additional owner, we have no problem doing that.
Mr. Dan?
The only thing I would need to clarify is that it's not just administratively, because at that juncture, now your application affects two properties, which it really does in the first instance. And the description that we've been talking about would also have to include the adjoining property owner
I'm sure we could work all that out.
description.
All right, we'll
So
clean it
a
up.
new notice would have to be done.
Not a problem.
Mr. Corley.
Yes, sir.
The, area from Lorna Lane to the property line, that's village property. That is not a setback. Because these lots were there before that community was put in. And it was put in with a 60-foot right-of-way coming down that street. South Lorna Lane has a 60-foot right-of-way. 30 feet is paved, 15 feet on each side. So that's village property. Now, I don't know if that throws a monkey wrench into the works because the village becomes involved.
Why would the involvement of a governmental agency ever throw a monkey wrench into anything?
Charles,
So therefore, you're not on frontage.
Charles, could I
Yeah.
ask you, could you clarify that, please?
Okay,
When you say village property, you mean they have an easement, it's privately owned, but there's an easement?
no, it was given to the village.
Oh, it was given to the village.
It was a.
How do we know?
Because of the, when the, original, development was there, it was called, I think it was Lorna Lane Estates or something like that. And then that was at the time, the town of Ramapo, they wanted a 60-foot easement coming down through there. Don't ask me why, it didn't make any sense at the time anyway. And so the land was dedicated that way. It wasn't put onto the individual lots because, as you know, from the survey, it shows your property line. So it's a 15-foot down to the curb line, which is taken over by the town of Ramapo, and I gather it's now taken over by the village of Fairmont.
Interesting.
So that's a side lot, that'd be a side yard, that wouldn't be a front yard.
Charlie, where on the map are you talking about?
Well, if it's, I don't think we quarreled that it would be, we had a lot of back and forth, actually, with the building inspector over whether it was a front yard or a side yard.
I know that because I have the same on my yard.
And on your survey, that's defined as a side yard.
It's a side yard,
Huh. There you go.
except at the time, the town of Ramapo, we remove a structure.
Where would, Charles,
Yes,
where would this be going back?
it's just a fact, it's a fact. I don't know how it
I'm
reflects.
not doubting you, I'm just asking.
It's the area
You seem
between
to
the
have
boundary
pulled
of the
this out of the
property and the
air,
curb
and I-
side.
No, he got spanked. As he moved something.
Yeah.
That's how you
why I
find
got
out.
because they added it to my property too. All the way up the hill.
You'll have to.
Well, I'll
But that-
investigate.
Your
And that
client,
has
you'll
it
need
too.
to obviously further research that.
Not a problem.
For your own truth,
Not a problem.
all right?
You know, we've had a very good understanding with the building inspector while this matter has proceeded, and so I'm sure that will continue, and we'll get you whatever answers you need.
When can you come back with, what we're asking for here?
When's your next meeting?
Suzanne, when is the, next, meeting in June?
The June, I'm sorry, it's June 9th, hold on. It is on June 8th, excuse me, Thursday, June 9th.
My daughter is graduating from high school that night.
So July would be, the 13th.
July?
July is 13, the second Thursday.
It's always the second Thursday of the month. That's why you submitted it in time to make this meeting because of your daughter's graduation.
No.
I remember that. You got it in time.
Try, that's right, because I wasn't gonna be able to be here.
Right. Then I said you're already here for another application, let's try to get it in.
I've been waiting a long time for this.
All right, let's move along.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Not complex at all.
So it's continued, is this continued?
No, it's okay.
It's, well, I guess we need to,
I know, right?
vote to continue this public hearing.
Yeah.
Rabbi.
No.
Well, no, it's gotta be renoticed anyway.
Oh, so it'll be a new case.
It'll be renoticed because we have to submit it.
Revise their application
Folks, I need to hear, thank you. Do you have that,
To include the neighbor.
all right, hold it. Mr. Katz?
I'll make a motion, as specified by our attorney, Mr. Patchak. I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go, to, number 6.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Ryan, did you wanna keep this letter and give us copies or anything? This looks like an original.
Yeah, I don't have anything
Well,
for
I
the
was gonna
record.
say, I can see on the copy.
I'll scan it in, I'll email it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Ryan.
thank you, Laura.
All right. Number 6 on the agenda, the application of Abraham Drew to receive a variance from Article 2, Section 210-17, Table 5, to authorize the construction of a first-floor addition to an existing single-family residence. The proposed dwelling will have a .32 floor area ratio, where the maximum permitted floor area ratio is .20. The property is located on the west side of Besson Parkway, approximately 340 feet south of Kenneth Street. The lot is designated as Section 56.14, Block 2, and Lot 58 on the Town of Ramapo tax map. The property is located in the R15 zoning district and contains .28 acres. Street address is 28 Beeson Parkway in Airmont. Now, before we continue, give me a second to find some notes here. One. We have a couple of communications from the Rockland County, well, one from the Sewer District, number 1, and one from the Department of Planning.
We should have one from the sewer district.
I have one from the Sewer
You have the
District.
sewer?
You want me to read these into the record, or I should? All right. All right, from the Department of Planning, I'm just gonna, it describes, what is the request here. It's permit a first floor addition to an existing single-family residence located in R15 zoning district on .28 acres. And it gives the coordinates there. The County of Rockland Department of Planning has reviewed the above item and, acting under the terms of their general municipal law powers and those vested by the County of Rockland, I, the Commissioner of Planning, recommend the following. A review must be completed by the County of Rockland Sewer District number 1 and all required permits obtained. A review must be done by the Rockland County Department of Health to ensure compliance with the Rockland County Sanitary Code, Article 19, mosquito control, and map notes 9 and 10 should be updated to reflect the current supplier, which is Suez Water Company. Their last comment here, this neighborhood is characterized by similar lot sizes and residential structures. The applicant is seeking a floor area ratio that is 60% greater than permitted. While the granting of this variance may not have an impact on the New York State Thruway or the Town of Ramapo, our reasons for purview, it may set a precedent for other property owners within close proximity to also request similar variances and thereby change the character of the neighborhood. In addition, allowing greater than the permitted floor area ratio on undersized parcels could overburden local roads as well as the sewer system, stormwater management systems, and the public water supply. The ability of the existing infrastructure to accommodate this increased density must be evaluated. The Village of Airmont should evaluate this proposal in context to the surrounding community and the precedent that could be set, and it's signed by Douglas Schewitz, Acting Commissioner of Planning for Rockland County. The Sewer District Sewer District. All right, fair comments, approval of this application and the variance for maximum floor area ratio for the proposed additions to an existing one-family residence on an 11,650 square foot, 656 square foot lot in the R25 district. Does not require the applicant to pay an impact fee in accordance with Rockland County sewer use law. However, if the use or occupancy of the building exceeds one unit by adding a house of worship or an accessory apartment, the district will require further review and impose an impact fee. Okay, I don't have to read the rest of this, it'll be submitted to the record. Okay. I'm just looking for, do you have the minutes from the meeting that reflected the last visit here? I think you gave me.
I put them in the
I know I
packets.
read them, I'm just looking for them.
Do you need another copy?
No, we got them.
Okay. I
just
put them in
couldn't-
there for, especially for the new members.
Yeah, no, I went over it, I just couldn't find my copy. This was back in October of 2016. And the applicants came before the zoning board of appeals, asking for a floor area ratio variance. And I'm not gonna read these minutes over, but trusted all the members and ad hoc members got a chance to take a look at this. And after much questioning and consideration, the zoning board of appeals on October 13, 2016, denied the application, various reasons, and major reason was the size of the request. So here we have the applicant back before the zoning board of appeals tonight with some revisions. I'll turn it over to Mr. Carbon, and your name again, sir?
Mr. Merifeld, Stanley Merifeld.
Stanley Mayerfeld. And you've been here, you were
Yes,
here
been here
before? Okay, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ryan Carton, counsel to the applicant, and I was pleased, of course not surprised to hear that your diligent clerk had circulated the minutes of the previous meeting. And I think what they reflected was a real attempt by this board to grapple with what it means to balance interests and balance benefit to an applicant with the communal implications, and the board obviously reached the determination that it did at that time. And the applicant, since that time, and I was not involved in the initial application, has had the opportunity with their design professional, Mr. Mayerfeld, to reflect on the board's decision, sharpen their pencil, and see if they could do a little bit better to minimize to any extent possible the scope of the relief that was requested, to accommodate the concerns that had been raised by a member of the board with respect to the need for adequate drainage facilities on the site, and to try to come back to this board with a revised proposal that would meet its satisfaction. And I note that when we speak about the balancing test, the first component of which is
Well,
a
before
change
we
in.
get to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we get to the balancing test, can you address, the change in circumstances that would allow you to even appear before this board? And put aside the drainage, because that's not why the board denied it specifically.
Yes, there has been a reduction in the FAR variance requested from .35 to .32 based on revised construction plans.
Thank you. Now, continue.
Thank you. And I would note that the existing FAR apparently, and a little bit of the history of Besson Parkway, these are among the smaller lots that we have in the village. It's a bit of an anomaly, even under the old Ramapo zoning, because whether it was under R15 or R25 or whatever it was, they weren't ever conforming lots over there. The existing FARs on these homes are all out of whack and non-compliant with the zoning to begin with. So that is kind of the state of affairs of as everything is found over here. And anybody doing any kind of expansion or addition to a home on Besson Parkway is likely to need to seek a variance for floor area ratio for an addition of any consequence, just based on, you know, the way we find those lots, whether it's this applicant or another applicant. But I think it's important when we keep in mind when we speak about changing community character, the balancing test is not about changing community character, because communities change all the time. The issue is whether there's a change that's undesirable that's going to be produced as a result of this particular applicant having this particular addition. And respectfully, I don't think allowing a home that's somewhat bigger on the lot is going to create undesirable community character. In fact, I think, you know, when I think about the character of a community, character is defined by many things. Character of a community is defined by what it looks like, but a character is also defined by the extent to which you go to accommodate your neighbors. And you know, Mr. Chairman, and your colleagues who heard this case previously were familiar with the hardship circumstances of the Drew's daughter that had been previously adduced before this board, and her therapeutic needs. And I think that this board is also sympathetic to the needs of many families who have a need for additional living space, and obviously anybody's preference in the first instance for economic and other reasons is going to be to see, what can I do with my existing property? How can I expand my home? Is there a way for me to have additional space for myself without causing any damage to anybody else? And I think the best evidence of that is that there are no setback variances that are sought for this particular application. Not intruding on anybody else's business, not intruding on anybody else's privacy, but an attempt by this homeowner on a lot which does not have an impact on a huge number of lots, to do nothing other than have more living space for themselves and for their family, which is, as the board previously took testimony, and, you know, I read the previous minutes, you know, is a large family. I think the board is also able to take note as, you know, homes of the size that were built on Destin Parkway way back when. Those are not a feature of contemporary home construction, to say the least. And we know the size of the average American home, for example, the past 20 years increased by more than 50%. So, you know, I think what is the negative impact of the Drews having a larger house is really the question that I think that this board needs to look at. Obviously, we know what the benefits are to them. They'll have more space for their family. They'll be able to attend to their daughter's needs in the way that they believe is appropriate, and it's always nice to have a more modern, upgraded home if you're able to do that. So, you know, there are obviously clearly benefits to the homeowner here, and that's why they're seeking this relief. And I think the question becomes is, what are the detriments to others? And my understanding of the previous application is there was robust support from many of the Drews neighbors for their application. So many of their neighbors did not view whatever change would be produced as undesirable. And I think that the improvement and upgrading of a residential property, which is kept attractively by longtime homeowners and taxpayers in this village, I don't really think that's a benefit for the applicant. I think it's a benefit for everyone. And so I think that when this board goes and applies the statutory balancing test to these circumstances, it doesn't need to make any trade-offs. It's able to recognize the benefit to the applicant, provide the modest relief that's sought in the form of a variance of only one item of the entire bulk table on lots, which I think we can all acknowledge, very, very difficult to do anything on an 11,000 square foot lot with a residence of appropriate size for, you know, the family you're going to find in the suburbs. So, you know, it's a reasonable application. I think the fact that the applicant went back to the drawing board after he got direction from this board, and I think you read those minutes, clear it was a close call. I think that board members were, you know, that's certainly the sense that I got from reading those minutes. But in any event, the applicant was able to reduce the scale of their variance by approximately 10%, but from 0.35 to 0.32, and to I think Mr. Mayerfeld, at the invitation of the board, would be happy to give testimony about how he has endeavored to minimize the size of the expansion. And I would respectfully request that the board recognize that all of these homes are existing, have existing FAR that exceed the calculations, that the relief that's requested here is relatively modest in nature, that other than total and absolute relocation, the applicant has no other feasible method by which to provide additional living space for his family, and given the drasticness of the steps that the applicant would need to take in order to achieve his objective if the variance isn't granted, the burden shifts to articulate sufficient countervailing circumstances and a magnitude of community impact that I don't believe can be articulated on the facts of this application. So we respectfully appreciate the opportunity the board is affording to consider our scaled-back proposal. And Mr. Mayerfeld and I would be happy to answer any questions you have about the scaled-back proposal. And we do hope that the board, in its second opportunity addressing this matter, can recognize the good faith of the applicant to get on board with some of the concerns that the board had, both with respect to the drainage and the scale of the addition, recognize the applicant's good faith, and recalibrate that balancing test and tip it in the favor of the homeowner. So I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to make this presentation. Be happy to answer any questions. If you want to hear from Mr. Mayerfeld at this time, I'm sure that he has loads of architectural thoughts that I neglected to mention in my presentation.
You want to just respond to questions, or do you
Have
want
you
to
saw
present
this-
something to us, or?
I mean, I understand that you saw this application in the past, we've talked about it, and now this latest application, it saw the reduced FAR and the changes that we've made, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Board members?
You want me to go first?
Why not?
Why not? Okay, first of all, thank you for coming back. This application was denied because the FAR in this community is important to the community, and we don't want an overdeveloped, changed look in the community. And that's whether we're on Beeson Parkway, South Muncie, or any road. Reality is that those are small lots with small houses for small families. That's a real estate reality, Ryan. They are not made for large homes with large families. They never were. As many of the other homes in the community were built, 1,800 square feet or less. That was the community built. The fact that your client went out and tried to minimize, and I consider this minimization barely discussable, from 3.5 to 3.2, still 0.3. It is so little, the change, that I have nothing to look at to change my opinion based on it. I do appreciate the family's hardship. There are many places in this area, in this village, that can accommodate this size home for this size family very comfortably. In my feeling, this would still have too much coverage on the lot in this street, and I'm afraid you brought up the best reason for me not to go favor on it, is that you feel that everyone else is going to be applying for this on the street, which is gonna change the entire street for area residents if they wanna build up. So unless you can explain why you're building a beautiful, large home on a very small lot. And unless there's a lot more shading, I can't see any difference in this application. So I don't know what I'm missing. What is
How many
different?
total square feet reduction does that translate to?
I'm not sure of the math off the top of my head, but it's a lot, it's
That
point,
shouldn't be too difficult.
so it's 11,000, the lot is 11,800.
Forget about the lot.
Well, no, that's, it's all,
Eleven
it's starting,
total?
no,
11,650.
so that's, you can do the math, it's 11,000,
11,650.
and you subtract out .03,
Well, let's do the math.
so you do the math.
I became a lawyer because I couldn't do math.
That's what I did.
So at .35 of 11,650,
Actually, no, a little less than that. Well, a little less than that.
I'm,
Oh, no, that's .35.
right.
Okay, it's .35.
I didn't-
No, he's,
No, that doesn't.
that's point.
Yeah, we don't, I just don't see the
Well,
difference.
it's not
I'm looking at it.
Okay.
There's a some, but there's a.
Anybody else have any
an
questions?
FAR. It's not the 653.
Well, you want to reserve your questions?
I just want to point out, well, we're not approaching the math, because I did point out, what's in the narrative, I point out that the above grade floor area ratio is just over 3,000 square feet.
It would be a difference of approximately 349.5 square feet. No.
That was what the
The
reduction
difference
was.
between .35 and .32 of FAR is 349.5.
So if I look at the original plans, you were 3,400 square feet and now you're 3,100 approximately?
The numbers are different, but that's the approximate
You're-
difference.
So you're saying that you shaved off 300 square feet of living space, not garage space?
Not garage, garage stayed the same. It's also really important to note that in this village, FAR is counted as 6'3" headroom and above. A good portion of this FAR, of this valuable floor area ratio that we need in this house is below grade. Below grade in a basement, I'm sure as the board drove by the property, it's 7-foot ceilings. It's 7-foot ceilings, and the house is not above, it's not raised up, it's completely flat. So this valuable FAR is buried in the ground. It's like over 900 square feet. That's why I note in the narrative that it's important as anybody driving down the street, anybody hasn't been inside the house, their visibility of the amount of square feet that's apparent is just over 3,000 square feet.
Most municipalities count basements towards
No,
floor area.
but this is a below grade. It's not.
I said basements towards floor area.
Yeah,
ratio.
no, it's 6'3". This is only on a 7-foot ceiling, and it's completely below grade. It's in this condition.
I've encountered, you'll have different calculations that get applied where there's the above grade space and there's below, I think Mr. Zumo could probably back that up, but there's above grade space and below grade space and ceiling heights, and depending on whether it's above grade or below grade and how high the ceiling is, some municipalities will have that in their FAR, some will not, and there's frankly, very little consistency from one municipality to another with respect to those standards.
And
Everybody
also-
makes up their own rules.
And it's also important to note that they're already overbuilt. This is a quad, it's a small house, and they're already overbuilt. So even though that the FAR numbers seems to be quite large, it's really, they're already like, I think are currently at .26.
Right, so we're not, the FAR would not be going from a condition of .20 to .32. It will be going from .26 to .32. The .26 being a pre-existing condition, which, yes.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking, your house foundation above grade is 57 feet by 37 feet. That's on your plan. Am I correct? I mean, that's what I'm
ins and
reading.
outs, I could run the numbers, but that's,
I'm
I
just
have my
looking
laptop
at,
here.
looking at your plans.
Yeah, so,
Okay, adding this length of the house
yeah,
and reading it across the width. Okay, you have on this first floor
yeah.
over 1,500 of those square feet. I
Right.
don't know why you're burying 900 of it in the basement. There's nothing upstairs?
There's very minimal upstairs. I maybe had a power, but I have.
I see a full.
I'm sorry.
I see a
I
full
misspoke. I misspoke. I was looking at my numbers. It's 900 change upstairs. It's 700 change downstairs. Nonetheless, that's still valuable. I apologize for that, for
right, I'm
reading,
saying
I was
it-
looking at the numbers incorrectly
Yeah,
on my
it didn't
screen.
add up to what you were
But
calculating.
it is over 700 square feet, below grade. And which is, again, this is 7-foot ceilings, that's completely below grade.
But that's not including the 3,200, whatever we have above grade.
This is a total, this counts as total FAR. So in my narrative, when we discuss the above grade, FAR, it's just, I want to note that. Also, I also want to note that in this zone, the minimum size lot in this zone is 15,000 square feet. So, and it's a planning perspective, when you're designing, the sizes of the house, you're saying that this size house should generate X, you should be able to generate X amount of square feet. So 15,000 times 0.2 is 33,000 square feet. So it's just, they're kind of like getting a both ends. Say again?
This lot is 11,006.
11,000.
It's
So-
not full lot,
It's not a full lot, but.
which means when you cover it with bigger amounts of properties, you're
Right,
covering more of the
right,
lot.
I'm stating is that the amount of square footage, like usually like the lot size and the amount of FAR are related to one another. So here, I was just noting that in this zone, is a minimum size required lot size of 15,000 square feet. With a .2 FAR, that will generate 3,000 square feet of buildable area.
So when you start looking at the zone, the appropriate zone, the amount of square feet we build on this house, relative to that which we're proposing. And also, it's also important to note that there are similar houses in this area that have, similar size. In fact, this house will still be a lot smaller compared to the other houses in this neighborhood. And the Drews are being very respectful to the neighbors, and they're not building up, not building high, they're not building tall, they're not building out. They're just extending their current house just to the rear of the property.
I think it's important, Mr. Chairman, again, everything goes back to the balancing test. And the whole idea of a balancing test assumes that these things don't always work out perfectly, and that there are going to be, instances where a balance tips in favor of respect for the cold numbers of the zoning code, and there are going to be times where the balance tips in favor of the humanity that often accompanies a zoning relief. And if these aren't, you don't insert zoning variances in a computer and get some kind of mechanistic determination. There's a reason that we have a board of appeals and we deduce this testimony, and you got to figure out which way to go with it. And I think it's important to be mindful that when you employ the balancing test, it's not a notion that there is some generalized harm by the granting of the variance. There's no presumption against the granting of a variance. There's no presumption that the granting of a variance is a harmful or bad thing. So when you look at the balancing test, you have to look at the undesirable change that would be produced in the character of a neighborhood. And the Drews having a slightly larger home or somebody else having a slightly larger home, what's undesirable about that? And I think that there would be the board would be compelled to articulate what's undesirable about these individuals in this particular community who have because of the uniqueness of the parameters and the pre-existing lot conditions and the situations in which they have a very limited set of options for additional living space. And granted, that's something not something the Village of Airmont created. The zoning goes way back, and it is a relic of a different time. And if that land were vacant and being subdivided for the first time, I think it's highly unlikely that you would see 11,000 square foot lots and the type of housing that's over there. So standing here as we are in 2017 and looking at the options that this particular applicant has and the four corners of this application, what is this applicant doing that's harmful to anybody else in the neighborhood? Absolutely nothing. This applicant has also clearly shown a desire to minimize the impact by revisiting the matter and scaling back their proposal. There are no off-site impacts with respect to traffic or drainage or other kinds of relevant environmental considerations. And the applicant has put certain personal circumstances at issue here, which the board could assign an appropriate degree of weight. The drawings that have been presented are attractive. Long-time tax-paying residents of the village, and all they are asking this board for is to be able to have a little bit more room. That's all they're asking. It may sound very dramatic in a legal notice, and we have a hearing and all of us sitting around, but what are we talking about? One family needs a little bit more room because they have a lot of kids. And either this board can find a way to work with them as they have tried to work with this board, or we can't. But I think that the character of this community, the character is often defined by how we deal with things just like this. And I hope that this board can find character in this community to reach a fair and reasonable accommodation with this particular home.
Ryan, can I ask you a question? And I know this came up last time. The then building inspector determined this was an R25 zone. The county GML map says it's an R25 zone. The survey from the original construction, when it was done by the town of Roundborough, the subdivision says R20. The letter from the county sewer district says R25. Granted, the letter from Department of Planning says R15, but I would presume that they were basing it on what you put in your application.
We
Where
went
did
to
you
this.
get R15?
We got it from this board. We went, the original application wasn't R25, even though the map says R15. Our initial application to the then building inspector was an R15. We were instructed to submit it as an R25 by the then building inspector. The first time, at our first meeting,
An R25.
we was an R25,
Right.
and we were instructed by this board to bring it back to an R15. This was the.
I believe I saw that in the
That
minutes.
was the discussion of the first meeting.
There was I was not involved in the previous application, did not prepare it, and I didn't become involved in this matter until
went-
Mr. Crush Hour 2 days ago, but I did in reviewing the file.
We spent a while, and I almost got distracted by the whole case.
There was a great deal of discussion about that, but the minutes reflected, that this was supposed to proceed as an
Yeah, but
R15 application.
this board
And I think there
doesn't-
was no difference with respect to the setbacks anyway between the R15 and the R25 or the FAR, and there was no difference which category was applied in either case, if I remember from the minutes that I reviewed. That even applying the alternative bulk table, it was the same standard, but again, it's not a call that I made, but I believe that that's consistent with whatever the interpretation of the Airmont building inspector was at that time. And as you know, the board's jurisdiction is appellate, and we use whatever it is we were directed to use. But I think when the board inquired about it in the original application, there was no de facto difference in any event. But again, if that's something where, I realize, Mr. Crashauer, that some members of the board are new, and if that's something on which you require us to furnish additional information, we would of course do so.
Okay. I think at this time we'll open this to the public. I need a motion.
Motion to open to the public?
Second?
Second.
Charles, you lose.
That's okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, if any member of the public has any comment that they wish to make on this application, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you and see that you get your statement made. Ma'am in the back, I need you to either stand up or speak loud and also identify yourself, your address, and I have to affirm you. So, who are you?
Brady Rakin.
Could you speak up? or-
Brady Rakin.
Okay, I got it. And
Do you want me to come up or?
yeah, if you don't mind, it would just be easy to hear. Don't be shy. See, we're protected here, we have this bench. Show courage,
I
okay.
live on 9 Plymouth Place,
9
which is right behind Besson Parkway.
Okay.
We share the park, like our backyards back up to the Besson Park.
Gotcha. I just have to ask you to affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge.
Okay,
Do you? Okay.
We live on Plymouth Place. Plymouth Place is, there are single-family homes on 3/4 of an acre, so the lots are much larger. And my husband and I have a personal interest in keeping this neighborhood, single-family homes, nicer neighborhood, residential, and that's why we moved to this neighborhood originally from the old Muncie. I know the Drews. I went to school with Surrey many years ago. I can definitely attest to the fact that they are honest people. There's not going to be any hidden apartments. They're simple people. Nothing's going to be ostentatious, and I believe that whatever they do is going to enhance the look of our neighborhood, the feel of our neighborhood, and the way we want to keep it in Earmont.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd appreciate if you let them go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back, could you identify yourself?
Maya Klein,
And
41 Besson Parkway.
do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be true and correct to the
Yes.
best of your knowledge?
Yes,
Yes?
yes.
Okay, please.
I just wanted to mention, I don't know if so the lawyer or the architect knows the block. I live on the block 12 years. There are quite a few houses on the block that are larger because of this, those lots are particularly bigger. So normally when you look at FAR, you just want to make sure that there shouldn't be any anomalies, any eyesore or anything. But in this case, I think it may be the opposite, because if a portion of the block are larger houses, the smaller houses may be an anomaly. So by increasing it to be conformed, it'll enhance the look of the community as opposed to the other way around. And there were a few houses that had some additions, and then there were some houses that were sold after that increased in price just because of the look of the block. So I think it's just it just helps the whole block, and it's not going to be the typical FAR issues that come along with those.
Ryan, get up, let him sit in your seat.
Whoa, Ryan, man.
Whoa.
Well, he's an attorney, you can talk to another.
Bring it on, Dan.
I wouldn't think.
Just for the numbers, my house is 5,000
You
square
know,
feet.
Mr. Cudjoe, all those things I said at the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Chairman, I withdraw and I redirect them to the other end of the table.
Yeah, they're 4,900 square
Yes,
feet,
yes.
So mine is 4,900 square feet. There's quite a few probably,
4,900 square
Yeah.
feet, eh? All right.
and there's quite a few that are 3,000. I don't think like 3,500 is a big deal. I mean, it doesn't have any problem with me.
All right, thank you. Anyone else have a comment? Gentlemen, please identify yourself.
Sam Fine, I live on 45 New County Road. I
Do
just,
you
yes,
affirm that
I
you will
will,
tell
yes.
us the truth
yes,
to the best of
to
your
the
knowledge?
best of my ability, and my knowledge. I would say, I think Lori, is that your name? You commented that that the neighborhood was set up a certain way, and that why, this should be the expectation. If you move on to a block, and you have a certain small houses on small lots, it should be, that's the way it is, that's life, you should move on, move somewhere else. I think there's a big difference between someone who moves into a house and 2 months later wants to expand and ask for a variance versus someone who's raised their kids here and has been here for, I think, 10 years or something. 12 years. So I think there's a clear distinction. He's not being opportunistic, showing up and say, okay, let's just do a variance, because who cares? He moved onto the block, been here for a while, and at this point, it's unreasonable for someone to, change all their neighbors and their kids and their park down the street and stuff like that. I think it's a very reasonable request of his. That's all.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Gentlemen?
So I am the applicant, Abraham Drew, and I just want to
Mr.
point.
Drew, you're gonna tell us the truth?
Yes, I am to
Thank you.
say the truth. I just want to, again, to address Lori's concern. So last time when we came for the variance, the concern was too large. I think 350 square feet on just the addition is, I think, significant. But mainly, again, what Mr. Fine was just saying is what I wanted to bring out. When we moved on into Airmont, we didn't move in with such a large family. The family grew with us in Airmont, and then my daughter with the hearing impairment was born only 3 years ago. So, and happens to be the houses that was built in 1969 was built for a larger family. In those years, because Mrs. McCormick before us had 8 children in that house. So it was, I guess, considered in 1969, a larger house. And the bottom line is where we are now, as we've been paying Airmont taxes for 12 years. I feel very much a part of this village. And I don't, as you can see, the wonderful neighbors that we have, and our children all have friends, my wife has friends, I have friends. To get up and move somewhere else is a lot easier said than done. There's no reason to uproot, my whole, everyone. It causes a lot of disruption in family life when you have to move. So, we try to do the addition towards the back. There's no one living behind us. It's just woods and a park. We didn't come out on the side. And then you know, as the neighbors will test, I wanna live next to them and they want me to live next to them, so granting the variance would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Ma'am? And you are?
What?
And your name is?
Hannah Lester,
And you live where?
22 Besson Parkway.
Okay, and
Soul
you'll
Trail.
tell us the truth,
Right.
yes?
I have a selfish reason to want the Drews to expand. Their home is a place where our children feel safe, that's where they play, that's where we go for listening air, for coffee, and it'll just give us more space to spread out, all of us. I think I'm speaking for all the friends on the block.
Shooting gallery. Well, we'll keep the hearing open.
Is there any more comments?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm also Mrs. Drew, Sari Drew.
And you affirm that the
I
testimony
affirm
you'll
to say the
give to
truth.
us will be true.
My daughter is here today. She's 14 years old. She wanted to say as well. It would mean so much to us if we would have more space. It really would be tremendous, and we wanted to, we just really only want it to be a benefit and an asset to the neighborhood, and we really feel that the bigger house and having more space for the children, and all we want is just to have quality life, and we enjoy our neighborhood. We love Besson Parkway. We would like to stay here, and we're just really appealing to you to please help us and allow us to expand. She's getting shy.
That's all right. That's all right.
Can I speak? Okay. I'm gonna say the truth.
What is your name?
Delima Crown.
Okay, and where do you live?
7 Ashland Road. It's off Besson Parkway.
Okay, and do you affirm that the testimony you'll give us will be true?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Please.
So I just want to say that when I was going through a very terrible time last year, I was sorry to that of all the people I know, I have family and friends here, and it was her that helped me so much that I think like I would have suffered emotional disorder if she would move away. I want her, she needs to stay here for her emotional well-being. I'm serious. She's like the person everyone goes to, and she makes the block amazing. Like I feel blessed that I moved here and I have her as a neighbor.
Nothing wrong with it, liking somebody's character. We appreciate your comment. Anybody else? Board's pleasure. Another gentleman, sir?
Hi, my name is Mayor Bikel. I live at 42 McCounty Road, which is right corner of Plymouth, which is right in the backyard where Besson meets.
You affirm that
Yes.
you'll give us truthful testimony, yes?
Yes, thanks for giving us the opportunity to speak. I was here
Just speak up just a drop, sir.
I was here by the first hearing, by the first application.
Okay.
When there was a raging thunderstorm, and we came out here again. Thanks to it's gorgeous weather now. But as you can see, I mean, I'm not a professional. I don't know anything about the zoning, how the zoning works, what the board is. Basically, it's the community, whoever's here, everyone is in agreement, and the zoning is here to protect the residents of the community, not to do what's not according to zone, and everybody's here in agreement that we should allow this to happen. Then common sense would dictate that the board should approve this this request, this very simple matter. We're not talking about here anything major, any upheaval, any major, So that's just the way I think that hopefully the board would take that into consideration, that there's absolutely no one saying here the opposite. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? further discussion, questions by the members? Shaking hands. I'll entertain a motion to, close the public hearing.
Take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
You got that? Wanna call? No, I'll just ask. I think we can hear. All those in favor?
Martin, I
Yes.
know we do, and just for the minutes, before we vote.
Yes.
Did we read into the minutes, Department of Planning from May 4th of this month before we vote?
I think I
We
did.
did.
Did we, I'm just asking.
We read 2 letters, right?
Okay.
Yes, I read this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, he read the first, did you read both pages? Is that what your point was, Lori?
Yeah. My
I-
question was whether he read
The back page.
the
The back
second
page.
page into the minutes.
I did.
They said
Okay.
double shoots.
I did.
You did, that's right.
I did. By voice, all those in favor of the motion to close the public hearing, which was seconded? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried unanimously. Aye. Board members, do you have any further questions of the applicant or representative?
Just one.
Please.
First of all, I want to say you must be an amazing family to have such from your neighborhood, and please don't assume that any of this has to do with that, okay, or the fact of moving, or anything like that. This is to the architect again. The letter and all the indications and all the other houses and everything that you showed us to substantiate us granting this very large variance, forget about balancing acts, but it's a very large variance by numbers. Everyone else's variance where you indicated on these houses that were built out were all below 30.3. Yours was still above that. Is there any way, if the board so favored granting a variance, whereby that can be brought down another bit, just to bring the variance down to 0.28, another 200 to 300 feet on the house? Because I understand this family and the strength of it, but they're gonna have to be moving out for a year as they're building anyway. But I'm only teasing. That was a joke, I'm sorry. But is there a way that you can shrink that anymore? Okay, can you, if we were going to approve it, say, based on it being,
I just wanna point out that the house is already at 0.26. So 0.26 to 0.28, whatever the numbers are, it's really not much of an addition at all. Right now, if you look at the floor plans, there isn't any common space in the house. There's no place, there's no like family room in the house for
I couldn't find out where the child's room was supposed to be. There was supposed to be room for your daughter for,
The family room.
right, that's gonna be the family room? I couldn't tell by the plan. Okay, so you're saying it's impossible to present this any smaller? Am I, that was my question. That was my question. In your opinion, your professional opinion,
There is, I think what's really hurting them is the basement, that the basement counts towards floor area. The basement ceiling height is only 7 feet. 7 inches, take that out, you have another extra couple hundred square feet. The house is already overbuilt.
I was looking at your addition being 24 feet back for your kitchen dinette area, whether that could, if that went back, say, 22 feet, you went back 2 feet less.
We really took a very honest look. The
That's
owner
what I'm
took
asking
a
you.
very honest look. The last time we met, it was a larger house. And this is something that we really bring it down just to meet the very basic needs of their family, a family of any size.
No, that was the question. Thank you. I have no further questions.
These exhibits that you showed us, and I did, pass by them, there's another one you gave us Ryan. 29 Basin Parkway and, let me find the other one. These are probably on approximately.
These are-
And 25 Basin Parkway. These are on, what, 15,000 square foot lots? Lori, would you know, approximate size? I know we can't be scientific here, or the square footage of these extended homes, I guess.
I know I'm biased, but I believe I could honestly say.
You're very biased.
Yes.
I love it. Go ahead.
But I believe I could honestly say that if you view those houses that you raised, opposed to the houses that the Jews are proposing, the Jews' house will certainly look, and in actuality is smaller than those houses. Look at
Drew's house is building back, they're building across here, so you're gonna look smaller because you're building backwards, you're going on west.
Yeah, we're talking about character, we're talking about the character of the neighborhood, we're talking about respecting the character of the neighborhood.
We're also talking though, very serious, and this is what's hurting us even to bring it up. This floor, one of the gentlemen just said if the neighborhood is okay with it, or maybe Ryan said it. The problem is that if the neighborhood was okay with having accessory apartments, or the neighborhood was okay with doing other things, that is not a significant reason to change the zoning law, because the neighborhood is okay with it. Although the support of the neighborhood is very important to a zoning board, it's not necessarily a reason to change codes.
Can we say that being true, could we say though, having this house fit into the character of the neighborhood? Someone who's not familiar with lot sizes in the FAR would drive down this block, who would walk up and down the width and the depth of the property, and could say, this house is no different than any other house, this house fits in absolute character to this neighborhood, this house is not even larger than the neighboring houses in this particular zone.
Okay, Member DeFrancesco, it's perfectly fair for you to have a policy position that you don't want larger homes in this particular community. I've been unable to persuade you otherwise. I respect that perspective, that you want to stick to where the numbers yield. I disagree. I don't get to vote. I'm just an advocate. It's certainly a fair conclusion to come to, and I think reasonable people could also, applying the same set of characteristics and the same factors that go into that, reach a judgment that the equities in this particular matter, favor the homeowner. So I respect where you're coming from. I respect, where your concerns are. I think the applicant has tried to the extent possible to be responsive, and ultimately the board needs to decide whether this homeowner is going to be able to raise their larger family in the home that they've been in for the past 12 years and have the ability to expand in a way that they see fit, and minimizing that in a way that they can, or not. And fair people will reach a determination about that and go forward on that basis. Neither the Drews will have to contemplate the consequences of the board not granting the variance and what that would entail for them and their family, or the board, which is characterized by state law as a release valve from the strict requirements of the zoning code, will grant them relief and allow them the ability to have their extension where they presently remain. We can talk all night about the calculations and what's above grade and what's below grade and how you figure all that out. But, at the end of the day, this is about people in their home, and whether they'll be able to have a larger home to raise their family or not. And on behalf of my client, we ask you to provide them with the space that they need to raise their family.
Do you mind if I clarify a few points?
Oh, please.
Okay, these maps, these plans here are a little misleading as to the actual volume of the house. We have a finished basement that's got a 7-foot ceiling and is heated. It also has egress windows, if I remember correctly. So it is considered living space, and you show no map on here as to what is existing in the basement. If there are bedrooms or living rooms or family rooms in the basement. There's also another floor on top of this, which also has bedrooms and other living areas. So just saying that this is what we're expanding and this is the space that we need is a little bit off skew because you're missing the two other portions of the
We
house.
weren't denying in any way.
Okay,
that
that's
there are-
number one.
that there are
Number
bedrooms
two,
in the house.
I do have a question as to what's this block here in front of the garage door? Why would you be making the garage door smaller?
Um, We're not changing the garage door there.
Well, there's an extension on the garage door to make the wall smaller. Is there no longer the ability to put a car in there?
If this causes any type of problem, I don't know where this, this may be a leftover or something else. We guarantee the garage will be as is, there'll be the legal garage, not making the garage size any bit smaller. And the garage size, the garage door will be able to fit any standard size garage, and we're not going
So the
with
garage is
custom.
still a garage?
Yes, 100%.
Thank you.
And obviously there are bedrooms inside the house.
Yes, oh, sure, of course,
100%,
upstairs.
yes.
But what rooms are downstairs?
There are, what rooms are downstairs? Well,
Family room.
it's a family room downstairs?
It's like a finished basement.
It's a finished basement, but it's below grade, when you drive down the street, the house is not raised, so that basement is not visible from the
Correct, but
street.
it does have large egress windows and it is heated. And it's a 7-foot ceiling, which makes it legal eventually.
Right, that's why it does count
Okay.
towards the FAR, 100%, yeah, that's why we counted towards the FAR. 7 inches less, that 700 something square feet would be discounted from the FAR.
Correct.
Ask a question. Thank you. When this application came before the board last fall, did you have any questions? I don't know if I recall or not regarding, surface and
Water runoff.
Water runoff and I sense that you might have had some commentary.
Well, I think according to state regulation, Dan, if I'm not mistaken, you can't discharge water off the property anymore.
And he's saying it's zero net runoff.
We are providing, zero net runoff.
Okay, total square footage of the surface on this.
It's saying 3,074.
You're talking about first floor, development coverage?
Just total coverage, all paved areas and the rest.
I don't have the survey will have that listed. .27, which is, as you see, is far below the maximum allowed. The maximum allowed is 0.5 or 0.27, about half of what's legally allowed.
But on the size, when you're talking about 1 inch of rain coming down, if you look at an acre, you're talking about 27,000 gallons on an acre. So you're at, let's say, you're a quarter acre. So you could have potentially, roughly, say 8,500 to 9,000 gallons of water for 1 inch rainfall. Now, your system here would say that you have what, a 1,000 gallon dry well. Now, the last time you were here, they mentioned they had some problems with water in the basement.
You have,
No.
no water.
They mentioned that?
We did work around the house to make sure that we don't have, I'm saying
We just had to be waterproof.
we
Waterproof.
we made
Okay.
sure not to have any.
Okay, but if you have 8,000 gallons of water and a 1 inch rain on an acre, on a quarter acre lot, you have a lot of water to handle on this lot. And from my time with the Soil Conservation Service, the soils here are not great at percolating water. That's why the lots were smaller and they donated the reason why this lot is that small, it's called average density. Your park area was donated by the builder in order to get the same amount of lots in the area. They downsized them. He didn't want to give the town at the time so much money for parkland. So he donated the land. He couldn't build on it anyway, it's too wet. So now this was still in that sphere of influence of poor drainage. Increasing the runoff could increase your problems.
Mr. Piccarelli, you know, I believe that the plan that we submitted, from Mr. Celentano indicated the zero net runoff needed to be achieved. Obviously, neither myself nor Mr. Mayerfeld, has, the level of, engineering competence Mr. Celentano has, or that you have, or whatever it is. I couldn't calculate for you exactly what remediation would be, necessary, and I rely on my engineer for that. I know the village has its own, engineers, that review everything that everybody submits. You will not find a, they're pretty thorough. So whatever it is that we need to do to comply with the village's zero net runoff requirement, will be attested to and signed and sealed by our engineer, and subject to whatever review the village applies to make sure that us and everybody else who claims zero net runoff, you know, in fact achieves it. And, you know, I certainly don't purport to know exactly what the math, would be on that, but I do know that the village is particular in reviewing all the calculations that everybody submits to make sure that they comply with the zero net requirements.
Dan, has the engineer reviewed this?
Not that I'm aware of, but, at the very least, you know, this has been a discussion, that we're now, furthering, you know, with the, comprehensive plan. And, it should be noted that right now they have nothing. And their original plan, they had nothing. That their engineer is signing and sealing plans that show that it'll be a zero net runoff. I'm not saying it's foolproof. I'm not saying that in reality it's gonna work out that way. But it should be noted that that's another change from the original plan. That's all I'm saying.
Done with questions? What is your pleasure, board? Shall we call this to a vote? Well, I guess that's the next step, unless...
The next step would be to type it as a type 2 action under seeker, requiring no further environmental review.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
And if we are concerned about drainage, which is an environmental impact on it, wouldn't it be a type 1?
Not under New York State law. An area variance is an unlisted action. I mean the type 2 action.
Okay, I'll make a motion to declare this a type 2 seeker action, requiring no further action on this, on our board, by our board.
Second?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried unanimously.
Got it.
Shall we vote?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We need a motion, yes.
First you
That
need a
would
motion.
help. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the application of Abraham Drew to receive a variance from Article 2, Section 210-17, Table 5, to authorize construction of a first-floor addition to an existing single-family residence. Proposed dwelling will have, that's it again?
No, keep reading.
The proposed dwelling will have a .32 FAR, where the maximum permitted FAR is .2. Proposed, the property is located on the west side of Basin Parkway, approximately 340 feet south of 10th Street. The lot is designated as a Section 56.14, Block 2, and Lot 58 on the Town of Arapahoe tax map. property is located in the R15 zoning district. Are we sticking with that, R15? Yes. Contains 0.28 acres. The street address is 28 Basin Parkway, Fairmont, New York, 10952. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on Mr. Katz's motion?
I would like the board, when they're voting to, detail, the, reasons for their vote.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When do you get to tell your clients what to do? I am so jealous. My clients tell me what to do all day long. You tell me the secret?
I'll talk to you offline.
It's a distinct personality difference, you know.
You want me to do roll call vote?
Oh yeah, roll call vote.
Okay, member Di Francesco?
Why me first?
Oh, I always go from that way
Because
because
you have, you know, it's the hair, I don't know.
I always go from left to right.
I know. I vote in favor of the application for relief for these clients of a variance of 0.32 for an addition for their family usage. I do so with difficulty, understanding that this water area ratio on such a small lot is not necessarily in the benefit of the entire village overall appearances, but taking into consideration the family growth and need for special education and weighing the decisions, I do vote in favor of it.
And just to be clear, we're voting on a plan, last dated by, for Anthony Salvantano, last revised 2/14/17, which shows a 0 net runoff and the installation of a dry well.
That is correct, and then addition to the statement. Thank you.
Member Piccarelli?
I have significant reservations on the plan as submitted, based on lot configuration, size of structure. Having said that, I will vote in favor of granting the variance. But it should be noted that care has to be taken that even though an engineer has stamped it as 0 runoff, the one thing that we have here is a site. A site has never read the design manual, and conditions that we may not know exist based on the fact that this particular lot is so small next to a park area would be, for me, an indication of potential trouble. So anytime you dig into this ground, it's going to be a problem. But I vote in favor of it.
Okay. Member Meyer?
All right, I was here in October, not on the board, but in the crowd, in the audience when this came up. I understand the family's needs. I also understood the board's needs. So I give the family, the architect, credit for taking this home off of here and trying to meet us halfway. I do look at the blueprints, and I do wish you could take off a sliver more to help us up here. But I've listened to everybody here on both sides. I vote in favor of the variance as well.
Member Katz?
I vote in favor of this motion, in light of the fact that appears quite clear that this will only enhance the neighborhood, and it has great support amongst the neighbors of the neighborhood. Nobody has come forward, unlike other of our meetings, with other projects, where people speak out against projects. Here, everyone's speaking in favor of it. It seems to me that this will clearly enhance the neighborhood, clearly enhance the village, and be an asset to all of us. So I therefore vote in favor.
Application approved.
The application's approved, the chairman takes prerogative
That's right.
of not voting.
That's right, that's why I'm asking, I didn't think you would, so.
So you'll never know.
Nobody will care.
Nobody will care anyway.
The application
The motion is carried and the application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, really appreciate it, thanks so much.
Good luck with your construction.
Thank you, we appreciate it so much.
We wish you well.
Thank you, thank you, it's really appreciate understanding, being there with us, and thanks so much.
Well, we'll get some work on it.
Okay,
Can I recommend we take?
I was just gonna ask, does anybody need a 2-minute break?
Oh, yeah.
It's still, what, May 10th? May 11th?
May 11th?
We can take a break.
Okay,
As long as it's not the next day, you can take a break.
okay.
We can take 5, 7,
9.
And this is a continued public hearing, continued. And this is the application of Yeshiva Carlin Stolen to receive a 16.2% variance for development coverage from Article 3, Section 210, Table 3, Attachment 6, the bulk requirement to permit construction, maintenance, and use of a 27,000 square foot, two-story school of religious instruction for boys in kindergarten to 8th grade. The property is located on the east side of South Muncie Road, approximately 250 feet south of Muncie Heights Road. The lot is designated as section 56.18, Block 2, and Lot 48 and 49.1 on the Town of Ramapo tax map. The property is located in the R35 zoning district and contains 2.79 acres. The street address is 2 and -4 South Muncie Road, Muncie, New York, Airmont, New York, 10982. Okay. Mr. Carvin and
Rhonda Smith with
And-
Leonard Jackson Associates.
and Rhonda Smith of Leonard Jackson Associates. Did I say that? Okay.
So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the opportunity to come back up before the board and continue our presentation. Just to refresh the board's recollection, the Planning Board of the Village of Airmont, over a period of a number of months, conducted a hearing pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act with respect to the application of Yeshiva Carlin Stolen. At the conclusion of that, and after assessing all of the relevant issues, traffic, drainage, layout, the planning board adopted a negative declaration finding that the proposal would not have a significant adverse environmental impact and referred the matter here for your consideration. During the time in which the matter was considered by the CDRC, the Community Design Review Committee, and the Planning Board, a major change that had been made in the application was with respect to the addition of a variance for development coverage. The original versions of the application were designed to avoid having to seek any variances whatsoever. It became clear in the course of the process, as we discussed at the last time, that the circulation on the site, the firematic needs on the site, the bus needs on the site, the way to interact with South Muncie Road was going to be made significantly safer and more effective through the use of additional pavement, which triggered a maximum development coverage variance. Mind you, we are still below the maximum development coverage permitted for a residence. Under the Code of Airmont, it's difficult to conceive of because you would think that an institutional use, which inherently needs to have a fire zone and a parking lot and all those other kinds of things, would have a higher development coverage. But in a quirk of your code, which I'm sure will be reviewed by the all-powerful committee, which has now been impaneled, you have a discrepancy between the institutional FAR development coverage that's permitted and the residential development coverage that's permitted. In any event, what the board asked us to do at our last hearing was to share with you in writing the comparison between the original plans, which weren't seeking variances, and the plan that is seeking this one development coverage variance, to share with you the fire review that undergirds that. And so we did make a submission to the village dated April 6, 2017. It documented the development coverage calculation and how those numbers were arrived at so that that would be clear in the record. We provided a comparison with the no variance plan as you requested. We provided the detail with respect to the pervious pavers, and you wanted assurance that the pervious pavement that was being contemplated, this may have been you, Mr. Piccarelli, that what the load bearing capacity was of that, and that is calculated for you in our April 6th memorandum from Ms. Smith as well. The memorandum also recites the meeting between the applicable fire chief and the engineers to discuss the traffic patterns, and we include to you the memo submitted by the fire chief to the planning board requesting the location of the 4 parking spaces and the planting island to facilitate the movement of the fire trucks, and the steps that we took in response to that request from the chief, as well as that in response to comments at CDRC, we added the pervious paver turnarounds for the fire truck to allow room for the fire truck to turn around and leave the site, and we provided you with the revised fire truck turn analysis, which utilizes the Muncie 7 tower aerial truck template, which is what was requested in the Muncie Fire Department's letter dated May 23rd, 2016, and that was attached to our memorandum as well, which demonstrates the ability of the fire truck to travel around the site unencumbered. So I think that the long and the short of it, Mr. Chairman, is putting all the relevant planning board considerations of things that they have to deal with on the side. The reason that we are here is with the support and assent of the agencies that reviewed the application to make sure that the school had the appropriate parking, had the appropriate turning radius for the firematics, had safe egress for the school buses, and despite our best attempts to avoid having to seek a development coverage variance, the consensus that emerged with the village's design professionals is that it was preferable to seek a development coverage variance, that we would agree to seek to minimize the drainage impacts through the use of pervious pavement, which, as this board will have a less severe impact with respect to development coverage, and provide the fire flow and the egress that was requested by all of the agencies, albeit needing this one variance from the board. So I think when you evaluate the totality of those circumstances and again apply the appropriate balancing test, not only is the applicant seeking the minimum variance necessary, the applicant tried to seek no variances at all. And it's in the request of our cooperation and our desire to work with everybody here that I think we've come with a reasonable plan. It minimizes the development coverage variance, it utilizes adequate load-bearing pervious pavement, and it does the most important things that I think that we all care about. It allows the fire trucks to navigate the site safely, it allows kids to get in and out of school safely, and it minimizes any of the impacts associated with that. And I think that one of the things that this board often encourages applicants to do is to work with all of the various agencies, to work with the CVRC, to work with the firematic community, to try to address those concerns and try to provide solutions rather than excuses. That's what we've been able to do in this course of this application. We ask that you recognize that, grant us the small development coverage relief that we are seeking with the support of the planning board, and allow the site plan process to proceed with all of the relevant factors that are attendant to that process at the planning board. So that concludes my presentation. If there's other questions that you have from Ms. Smith, I'm sure she's happy to address them. I know that we gave you our little handy booklet here, and we hope that again, we want you to be comfortable, Mr. Chairman. You had questions, you had concerns, and we have the ability to provide you with comprehensive answers to that so that nobody needs to guess about what they're voting on, and we appreciate you affording us the opportunity to do so.
Lots of questions. But let me ask Suzanne something first. With respect to, was this ever put in the record, January 19, 2017 from Rockland County Planning? Otherwise I need to enter it.
The last meeting.
It was done at the last meeting, I just put it there as an
That's what I thought, I
informational.
just wanted to
Yes.
make sure.
There were a number of letters at the last meeting that were read into the record.
Yes.
I only made a copy of the GML because that's the most important.
Our
Yes.
memories. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Give us a moment, Mr. Farman.
Just quick clarification. Your April 2017 map, I assume is your most recent map that we should be working on? Dated
Is it
April 5th,
April 5th.
2017?
April 5th, 2017.
Okay, and the earlier maps were the ones that Lauren, you were discussing didn't need variances or whatever?
This was the original.
Yeah, I think map, we went from map version, goes around, we started with map version A, and what are we at, JJ? We went through the entire, I think this is the 35th version of this plan.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, originally, you were looking to build a 24,000 square
Yes, it
foot
was, yes.
yeshiva?
Yeah.
And you're now looking at building an 8,400
Right, yes.
square foot, I'm just trying to,
Right, yeah, no, my clients insisted that we have no variances and we stay below the development coverage. And when it was, when we realized that we couldn't do that and have have circulation for the buses and circulation for the fire trucks and everything. He decided to build the school he wanted, since he had to come for variances anyway.
And we did, in the course of this, way back when, we acquired additional real property so that we would have a larger site to work with. There are a lot of, this has been a long road
1992,
to get, to get here.
Yeah.
Long road to get here. And frankly, it is not easy, Mr. Chairman, to be able to go and, with the land for these schools and a lot of the school construction, and to get a plan where fire gets comfortable and you're able to do all the maneuvering and everything else. It was months and months and months of effort, and there was no way to do it without seeking a development coverage variance. We tried every which way to Sunday.
A question refresh my memory on the ownership
Yeah, that's what we're looking at.
of these lots?
Yeah, as we indicated when we were here last, Mr. Chairman, upon final site plan approval, all of the lots would need to merge into one common ownership, and that is contemplated by the adoption of the eventual site plan.
Well, that's not the way the minutes read from the March 9th meeting. Marty Cavell asked if there are two separate lots and two owners. Applicant will amend application with the LLC or names.
Okay.
Is that done?
I didn't get a new submission of an application.
I didn't think that was understanding that. My understanding was that was something that needed to be done as part of our final site plan submission, that the lot lines were going to need to merge. We had a discussion about whether those lot lines had already been disclaimed, and we indicated that they had not done so because the matter was still in the approval process, and when and if there was a final site plan approval that would be granted by the planning board, the lot lines would be merged and there would be common ownership. The minutes don't get sent to me to read, so I'm not sure what the minutes said or didn't say, but I do know that that's what I said at the last meeting, and that remains the applicant's intention. And, a note to that plan can be added if that's required.
Ryan, who is the applicant? Help me out, I wasn't there at the meeting. Who is the applicant and who owns the property?
The applicant is the yeshiva.
And they own one of the
And
lots?
I will tell you, let me take a look at the,
Nowhere is that indicated. The project name is the yeshiva. The applicant is Simon Reichman.
okay, so the applicant is Mr. Reichman, who I guess is the record owner of lot 40, I'm just reading the map here, 48 and 49.1.
Okay, and the other record owner is?
Again, I did not,
J. Ballard, LLC.
I'm not aware of what the real estate background is. I did not survey the maps or prepare them to list the
Okay, that's right. Dan? There are
J. Ballard,
there are two
LLC.
separate unrelated owners to this project, is that what I'm just looking for clarification on the comment.
Let me put it this way. I can't tell for sure. The application that was submitted in December 2013 at this point?
No, that's not 2016.
So you don't know who owns it?
2016?
That was included in the packet for
As
March.
applicant's signature and certification, I, Simon Reichman, hereby propose and say that all the statements contained in the papers submitted herewith. Then there's an affidavit of ownership and owner's consent, which contains two signatures and two names. Simon Reichman and J. Bellad LLC. According to this affidavit, J. Bellad LLC, although it doesn't indicate his position, was signed by Harry Reichman. I could only surmise that he's holding himself out as the, what's the exact terminology?
Member, managing member,
The managing
agent.
member. of
Of
J.
J.
Ballard.
Ballard LLC.
But
So,
there are two signatures. And the owner's consent form to visit the property, Simon Reichman and Harry Reichman, with an indication that he was signing on behalf of J. Ballard LLC. Same thing with the affidavit to the board.
okay, so the indication is that there are two lots, one owned by Simon Reichman, one owned under an LLC, that the managing, one of the managing members is Harry Reichman, and that's the paperwork we have?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't have anything clear to vote on, because we don't have ownership clear, am I correct?
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the contrary, I'm not sure what's
Thank
clear
you.
at all.
Thank you.
The lots are, as we speak, are not merged under the
Thank you.
law.
Right, of course they're not merged.
Right.
They couldn't be merged.
Why?
Why?
Why would we be merging two lot lines to construct a school that has not been approved? That would make no sense. Or this is a proposal.
How do you
It's
grant a variance, or say
To a
that,
non-existent
a variance for, FAR, which is based on two lots owned, by an individual and an LLC?
Because this is a site plan application,
Well, it's also
Mr.
an
Krasnauer.
application for
It's
a
here
variance.
by referral of the planning board with respect to the consideration of these variances as part of the project which is contemplated by the site plan. Absent a site plan approval, there are no variances. Nothing's happened. It's all part and parcel of the same process. I don't have the approval to build a school because I get an FAR variance. I have an approval to build a school because I get a site plan approved. In order to get my site plan approved, the variances are a necessary part of that process, but none of it is alive until after the site plan is approved. And at the time the site plan is approved, all the other normal things that would take place in an ordinary course. How do you apply for variances for a subdivision before the lots have been subdivided?
You own it.
It's the same owner.
We're talking about the ownership.
You have, what is required
That's not a
is
good
the
example.
consent of the owners to make the application. They've done so. We have a site plan that's before you that was reviewed by the planning board all this time, all these lots in the same type of configuration. There's no secrecy with respect to the ownership. The application has been consented to, and the variances have no force and effect unless and until the site plan is approved by the planning board, at which time the applicant is proposed to disclaim the lot line and merge the properties into one. So there's no relationship between the action that this board is taking and whether these properties are individual or common
What
ownership at this
prevents
point.
one of the property owners from selling the lot after the variances have been granted?
The variances, they can't sell the variances.
No, but the variance runs with the land.
The variance is part of the site plan approval. You don't get, if I don't get site plan approval, I don't have an FAR variance.
You still have a variance.
I have an FAR variance to build a parking lot that's not approved on a plan that doesn't exist for a school that has no permissions.
That sounds right.
That's illegal, that's not true. You don't get variance for something that's not approved. We're seeking a variance for our application to build this school. We're here on referral by the planning board as part of this is not an uncoordinated review, as part of a coordinated, distinct process, and I'm not sure what provision of law it is that prohibits the board's consideration of our proper application. What's the problem?
I have to tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. I can't recall a situation like this where two separate owners asking for a variance based on as if the lot was already merged in order to do the calculation, when legally, that's not what the situation is.
It's proposed. That's why it's proposed. It's a plan.
Mr. Kershaw?
Why, you're saying that that in order to come in with this application, before knowing anything that's gonna happen over here, these two landowners would need to disclaim their lot line, merge their parcel into one, come do that, make their application, without knowing whether it's not, it's gonna be approved, and then if it's not, and they wanted to then go and revoke their disclaimer, which in most municipalities, I know it's in the town of Brownfield, you cannot revoke a disclaimer of lot line by document. You have to go and, you would then need to then go and re-subdivide the land, that doesn't make sense.
Application.
I don't know what is improper about this application or how it doesn't comply with your code.
There, why, I mean, simply, shouldn't this just be a joint application?
Well, they did do a joint application.
Oh, I'm saying, well, it has record owner, and I'm just looking at the site plan notes. I'm saying if both owners were listed, that would cover both positions of the lot.
Both owners are listed in the application,
I
they
was
both signed
looking
it.
at-
Yes,
yeah.
I understand that, but
Okay.
it is all
Well-
there.
Hold on.
And whether the latest version of the plan references the other LLC or not, is not a
Hold it,
fatal flaw.
one at a time, please.
If both owners would submit a letter to us, as an agreement, that this is what they intend to do, would that be helpful?
Honestly, the application does that.
So if they have an agreement to do that, what do we want?
Yeah, that's where I think the error is.
Dan?
Never seen it.
I've been around a long time, I'm not an attorney, but I've been around I've never seen this actually, with respect to, how does a board view two separate ownerships on a singular application, that's requesting variances to build? What's appropriate here? To proceed or not, that's the question. And who would we be granting variances to?
Yeah, and this isn't that.
If we should decide to grant variances, who would we be granting it to? There are two separate ownerships.
To the applicant for the proposed plan. Which then goes back to the planning board to see if there's a site plan approval or not.
Well, I think this board would need to take advice from council on this question,
Legality.
on, how to proceed. So, I defer to council.
If the village wants to furnish us with a memorandum identifying what's improper about the application, we'd be happy to respond.
Right.
I'd turn it around and I'd say, you furnish us with a memo as to, how, case law where, you have two separate owners.
Absolutely not, vote it down. Vote, absolutely not.
Can you state, as an officer of the court, that you have ever represented an application where there were two separate owners applying for a variance that did not yet disclaim the lot line? Yes or no?
Yes.
Can you give me an example?
I will have to pull the name of the file, but I know that I've had applications where the disclaimer of the lot line and the merger of the lot lines was to happen ultimately after the project was approved,
Before
not
the zoning
prior.
board, not the planning board.
Well, zoning is part of is also part and parcel of the site development.
Did you represent an
I mean,
applicant?
I'm not here to be deposed by you, Mr. Crashauer. If you're advising the board that our application is improper, then identify for me what's improper about it. It wasn't improper when it was considered by the planning board under the same circumstances, or when we were here the last time.
For site plan, I've seen this. I can't recall ever seeing it for a zoning board.
I'm still at a loss as to how the variance that is being sought for the site plan that has been presented here on referral from the planning board, which proposes all of the conditions shown on the plan, are based on if the site plan gets approved. If the site plan doesn't get approved, there's nothing. There's no variances. There's no anything here. And when and if the site plan gets approved, obviously in the ordinary course, and if we need to make provision of it, you asked us in the case of the Interstate Toyota application, which also needed variances, where you had a number of lots that were going to be put together. We needed to put
owned by the same owner.
You asked us to add a note to the map that at the time of site plan approval, all lots would be required to be merged into one under common ownership. I have no problem whatsoever, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, putting the same exact note on here. I've represented
It's already
it.
on there.
Right, so I'm not sure. I'm happy to solve any problem, but I don't see what the impediment is to the, we haven't even discussed the merits of the variance, and I'm not sure what this procedural impediment is, unless there's an allegation that one of the property owners here is not consenting, but you put into the record the application, which clearly indicates that there's consent of both property owners, that they're aware of the application, they're proposing this jointly. The relief is being sought to benefit the nonprofit religious corporation, which is going to be operating the proposed school on this premises. We have a environmental review that's been completed by the planning board. We have a comprehensive submission that's been made with respect to the relevant elements of the standard of analysis that this board needs to utilize. We responded at great length in exhibits A through J to all the inquiries from the board at its previous meeting, and we believe the matter is properly before the board to proceed. If the board has a different view, the board is obviously certainly free to take that view, and we're free to our remedies with respect to the perspective that the board takes. But I think this is really a diversion, and it's a red herring. There's no problem.
All right,
There's a substantive question about whether or not the board wants to approve the
want to
variance.
correct the record. I never said that the applicants, I never represented that the applicants were the owners of the property. I have no way of knowing if the applicants are the owners of the property. I have no way of knowing if the other Reichman is the managing member of the LLC. I have no way of knowing if the LLC owns the property. I have no way of knowing if the other Mr. Reichman owns the other lot. There's nothing that on the plan that indicates who the owners of the property are. There's not even a signature one.
Oh, I'm not sure what applicants sign maps indicating they own it, and that's why we submit these affidavits. You have the affidavits saying who owns it. I mean, what else?
Dan, Dan, this letter that was submitted in January by the Rockland County Planning Department, point number 7 on page 2 of 3, is this as plain in English as they're saying in order for the proposal to be approved? Now, I don't know what point of approval they're talking about. And the lots merged, the parcels must be under the same ownership. This from Rockland County Planning Commission. Did they, is it inferred at point of time? You know, I'm just trying to stand in the middle on this one.
This is dated after the application. So it's, I think, evident that they reviewed the plan that was submitted and the application that was submitted. And they reviewed their own tax records to indicate that the two parcels compromising the proposed yeshiva site are under different ownership. And Mr. Carbon, it's not just my concern. The county went even further than I did.
We agree with the county. I have no quarrel with the county.
In order for the proposal to be approved and the lots merged, the parcels must be under the same ownership. Do you agree with the county on that?
Ultimately, at the end of the process.
In order for the proposal to be approved and the lots merged, the parcels must be under the same ownership.
That is, in order for, as a matter of law, in order for two parcels to merge.
This is addressed to the zoning board, not the planning board.
I'm aware of that. By operation of law, in order for the, for lots to merge, lots that are not in common ownership cannot be merged. You would need to have a conveyance. So the legal statement in that letter, is correct. And as indicated in all of our plans.
Why did they say in order for the proposal to be approved?
You'll have to ask them why they used the specific language, that they did. But there is no approved project.
Which comes
until
first?
Until the
In
planning
their-
board
in their
renders a
wording,
site.
which comes first?
I think that we will, this conversation is going absolutely nowhere.
Mr. Carbon,
I disagree with you, and you'll decide what you want to do.
You agree with the county?
I disagree with the fashion in which you were interpreting this in your attempt to slow down the application, I do.
To slow down the application or do it right?
We're not attempting to slow down the application.
I didn't think you were, Mr. Chairman.
I mean, it's jumping off this page from the county at me, and just in general, it's most unusual, to deal with multiple ownerships of an unmerged lot in one application, to request these variances, who are we dealing with here?
We're requesting one variance, Mr. Chairman, not variances, that's number one. Number two, both of the property owners have jointly executed all of this. And number three, the question is not whether it is unusual for applicants to do this or not. The question is whether the application is properly submitted before you. And so if the application is not properly submitted before you after it has been duly processed and noticed and scheduled, I would ask that the board respectfully advise me of the basis for that, reject my application for whatever specification or reasons that it is, and I have my remedies with respect to that, to cure or otherwise, whatever the deficiencies might be under the applicable law. But if the application is proper, then I believe the board has an obligation to consider its merits. And I'm not aware of any provision in the Village of Airmont's code or in the village law that prohibits the fashion in which this application was either prepared or submitted. And nor do I believe that any of the issues that have been discussed tonight are at all relevant to the balancing test that the board is required by statute to employ. So I don't know that what this has to do, frankly, with the development coverage variance in order to be able to have safe fire truck navigation of a school site. The owners have been clearly delineated. They have filed the required forms that the village provides and executed. Those forms were accepted, not rejected. The hearing was scheduled. And if there's some condition that the village has for a zoning board application that's not addressed by this, or there's some provision of the site plan rules and regulations that wasn't brought up in the course of the 20 some odd meetings at the CDRC that the applicant attended, we'd be happy to respond to that tonight. But after all these years of working on this and our previous meeting and all the efforts at the planning board and everything else, I find this a very highly unusual, you speak about unusual, it's highly unusual to be having this kind of discussion at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ryan, can I ask Leonard Jackson a question? Just a question.
How about Wanda?
Wanda, Leonard Jackson Associates Commission, because they were copied in on this letter.
I've been called worse.
Wanda, only because you were copied in on this letter. The paragraph that we're discussing, and although maybe it's the hour or Ryan seeing something else in it, well, the clarification, which is always an issue when there's an LLC without proof of who the members are, or any paperwork documenting who can speak for an LLC. Let's just put that as the logistics of business. It says on the same paragraph that we are discussing, in addition, and this was sent to your office, the site plan notes should be updated with both property owners, which was my initial question for the two parcels, because the site plan notes that I'm looking at, which are indicating 48 and 49-1, which is your latest site plan, only indicates one record owner. And I believe that paragraph 7 was indicating that this, if there are two record owners of these two lots, that both of them should be noted on the site plan. And that's what the letter said when it was sent to you. Does that make sense?
I think that's, I'm sorry, but all of the, often the conditions in these GMLs, whether a review needs to be completed by this, or the applicant needs to fill out a questionnaire.
Is that a lot? I'm trying to get through this tonight, because we're all here and it's 10:30. Before everyone huffs, puffs, and goes everywhere, we have an application in front of us. From your standpoint, does that make sense if there are two lots listed, that both things should be listed on it? That's all I'm asking.
We actually have a title sheet that goes with this set, and it has the same notes. The notes on the title sheet got changed, this did not, it was an oversight.
So there is there should be an attachment to this that might answer this question, and it's just not here, is that it? I mean, that would have resolved this.
Right.
That would have resolved it, we just don't have it.
Right.
Okay, so you have in your possession a title sheet acknowledging ownership and the rights of discussion of this Harry for this LLC, that he is a member. You have that kind of paperwork.
Yeah, I don't have it with me.
No, but well, if you say you have it, you wouldn't lie. But you physically, as Leonard Jackson, have the identification of the owners that we were just asking about.
Well, it was in the application, yeah.
No, the application stated a name. I'm saying you had a verification the LLC could be represented by this Harry Reichman. Just something.
He swears it under oath.
Yeah.
Harry Reichman is sworn.
The notary public does
Swore
that.
that he was a member. I didn't see anything that said that he had the right to speak. That's all.
So in the affidavit, you self-identify as the authorized agent. There are two forms of the affidavit. You self-identify as the agent of whatever the entity is, and the person, that's the affiant.
We can only work off what we're looking at, right? Well, I don't have the affidavit.
Right. And so if this person were falsely holding themselves out as the agent of the LLC and signing this form without authority, they would be committing a crime and guilty of perjury.
All right, so you have that, and that information, which on paragraph 7, they asked to be on the site plan, just was not attached to the site plan.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Dan?
That's what.
Thank you. No,
Okay.
That's good.
That's what we needed clarification on before the hub.
Very good. Dan, come back to you and ask about that .7 from the county. I mean, what is appropriate for this zoning board of appeals to do with respect to this notation by the county? I know it's an advisory scenario. However,
this is not advisory. This is mandatory. This would require an override.
That's what I'm thinking. Advisory, in other words, if we don't take it into consideration, it would require a 4-vote majority as opposed to a 3-vote majority. But notwithstanding that, what is appropriate for this board to do? Proceed.
You could proceed if you want to override the comment. But as Mr. Carbon said, he hasn't even gotten into the substantive aspects of the application.
All right, well, here, we should at least.
Well, I got into the substantive aspects of the application. I made my presentation last time we submitted our supplementary documents to you. I think I just went through the elements that we had submitted. I went through the elements of the applicable legal standard that govern here. We showed the efforts that the applicant made to minimize any applicable variances. We noted that the planning board found there would be no adverse environmental impacts. I noted the statutory preference which is accorded institutions of this nature. We addressed the questions that were left over from the board's last meeting with respect to the load-bearing nature of the pervious pavement, the comparison of this plan with the no variance plan, our ability to address the concerns of the firematic agencies, as well as the backup information from the Leonard Jackson firm with respect to how the development coverage itself was calculated, as well as the fire truck turn analysis that you had requested at your previous meeting. So all of those outstanding items have been sufficiently addressed by our response, and the issue before this board is applying the balancing test to the one variance sought, which is for development coverage for the reasons that we have stated in the record, and the board needs to render a determination as to whether the granting of this development coverage variance, again, there are a whole host of issues that are attendant to the site plan process that the planning board in its jurisdiction needs to evaluate, but for this board to apply the test with the relaxed standard that comes to educational uses such as this, and determine whether or not this variance is justified under the circumstances. And I have made my case both last time and this time as to why we believe this development coverage variance, this one variance, has emerged in the course of the process. We made this application with the consent, assent, and encouragement of the relevant agencies that we are here in order to facilitate the movement of fire trucks and cars and buses on the site as we have shown, despite our initial desire to avoid seeking any variances whatsoever. And so we have presented this plan to you, and we ask that you ratify the consensus of your own planners and engineers and advisors who got behind this plan over time, and allow us to proceed to conclude our site plan review.
Mr. Chairman, can I have one other question?
Of course.
All right, I'm reading this application is to permit construction, maintenance, and use of a 27,000 square foot, two-story school or religious instruction for boys in kindergarten through 8th grade. The building shows a two-story, 8,450 square foot. The application is for a 27,000 square foot. What am I missing now?
This is the one with the 8,000 square foot, that is the no variance needed plan. It's much smaller than
Wait a
what-
minute.
That's dated
That's the most recent date, that's
Right,
what I
well,
asked you
this-
before.
Okay, this one has a revision date of 4/5/17, and that's what I was going by.
I think what, I
No,
think
honey, we gotta straighten this out first. This plan is no
when,
good.
when you ask for the comparison between the no variance plan.
I didn't ask for that, I asked which map to look at.
The board, at the previous meeting, the board asked for that comparison, so I believe that that is what led Ms. Smith to give the no variance
All right,
plan
hold on.
on
I
that
wanna
date,
know
right?
what map I'm looking at.
Well, I was given this revision date here, is what I was given. So this is, the date on the map at the bottom here is 11/19/14. It's
Hold on,
revision
that's
7.
what, okay, hold on, let's just get the map.
It is revision 7 dated 4/5/17.
Two 2516 is not the right one.
14. 11/19/14.
Wait a minute.
She says the
I don't see that one.
27, the map says
I have
24.
three
It
maps
does,
here.
but it
No,
was a
that's here,
continued
but it's not
public
11,
hearing,
that's
so
this
I
map, that's
continued
nothing
what
to
was
11,
originally
19.
What is
ordered.
it, 24,
So,
27?
then I didn't notice.
I have one that's stated, oh, over there in front.
It was a continued public hearing. So it had to be reworded because it was so-
Okay.
All right, we got the.
Sorry, just, this is, okay, so this map is wrong, this map is now what we're looking at. Okay, moving forward. So you moved
I-
from an 8,400 square foot building.
With no
and-
variances.
With no variances, which means you can build the yeshiva there with no variances, am I correct?
Right, but it
Oh,
doesn't,
just
doesn't
let me
meet their
just-
Well,
needs, yes.
You have an 8,450 square foot yeshivas you can build there without coming to us. But in lieu of that, you've chosen to come to us for
You can't-
variances and build a
You can't.
24,000 square foot.
27.
No, that's not correct.
24,740.
No, there was the plan that you were referring to, was not getting from the CDRC to the planning board. There was, the village would not go along with that proposal, so it's not something that we could build. The village was opposed to it for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, for circulation reasons, fire truck. They increased our impervious area to get the fire truck in there, to get the fire truck access. And since we had to come for a variance for development coverage anyway.
You said, what the hell?
They said, let's get the building we need. Why build something small and then come back later on for variances and an expansion? Let's just get an approval for what we need.
And the 24,740 square foot proposed yeshiva, I wanna make sure I have the
Correct.
right place.
Right.
Although your application says 27,000.
It does,
Okay,
the
so
public
we do,
hearing
so
notice
those
says
two are not.
27,000.
which is what I use for
Not
public
just
hearing
me.
notices, that's the bylaw. That's what I
Okay.
use.
Your permit application is asking for a use of 27,000 square foot. Your map application is 24,000. Am I,
The building got made a little smaller and the application didn't get updated.
I'm just trying
Right,
to keep,
right.
okay? When things don't match up, you don't know what you're looking at. And this building is still only holding 350 students, the
Three
same.
hundred and twenty maximum, yes.
And what was the first building holding? Or you
It
didn't have a
was-
count on
Well,
it?
it was not gonna fit 320 students.
No, but how many students did that account for?
Well, they've got multiple sites, so they were gonna move as many students as they could into that building and still make it work. But now they can put them all on one site.
And
And
They use- you
this
show a
building now
bus
has, if I'm just remembering in the evolution, I think this building has a lunchroom, and the original building didn't have a lunchroom. There were a number of, right?
Yeah, they'll be able to get all their students on one site rather than having multiple sites around.
24,000 is a good sized building.
Right.
Yeah, and they should be able to get a few people in there. This is accounting for, your student bus schedule is accounting on this one, where you're saying what the time is. This is the final site plan. I'm just,
Yes, and that was extensively vetted by Mr. Ryan, by the village planner, and by his predecessor. There was extensive traffic studies and reviews that were all done at the planning board. We had to look at turning radii.
well, turning
and-
radius
and
is common
we
on
had-
any
we had
on
to-
any road.
I'm
That's
saying, so
something-
all of those, unlike those applications which kind of come here to the zoning board, and the zoning board alone in a vacuum, in this particular case, there was a many years of long and extensive study by the planning board of drainage, traffic circulation, and all those matters prior to them being willing to adopt their negative declaration.
All right, so just, again, and I apologize, part of this is that I read the minutes, but I wasn't at the last meeting. This appears to, again, just not correlate what I read. The Rockland County GML is talking about an 81% variance, you're talking about a 16 point, can I have the Rockland County letter again, I lost it.
Yeah, well, it would depend how you would calculate that, because from 20 to 36.2 is 16.2, but if you were to take the percentage increase from 20 to 36.2, it would be 80 some odd percent. So it's,
All right,
there
because
are
what I'm
there are
reading
lies, damn lies in statistics, right?
Is
So-
permitting development that does not comply with the applicable bulk standards considered undesirable land use and result in a, the applicant is seeking an 81% increase over the maximum permitted development coverage. That's the part I'm trying to
Right.
correlate with what, okay, so if I'm reading what the Department of Planning is telling me, they are
16.2 is
saying
81% of 20.
16, I'm really good with math.
So
Si- 'cause I do real estate.
16.2
Right,
which is the difference between what's required and provided, is 81%. So an 81% increase over from 20 to 36.2 is a difference of 16.2. It is
Okay,
but it's a percentage increase of 81%, but it still remains below if a residential use in the R35
Well, I'm not
zone
concerned, it's not
has
residential.
a 0.4.
Brian, I'm losing it tonight. I'm not concerned with residential. This is not a residential use. This is an institutional use. We can't compare to whether or not it works with residential. It's totally different.
Well,
Let's base it on its own merits.
Respectfully, if the standard is whether the development coverage on a lot would be out of whack with what's permitted for development coverage in the zoning district, and there was no use in the zoning district which permitted anything near this development coverage, I think that's relevant. I think
I don't think in a residential I could have built a 24,000 square foot house. So, let's just take it as separate, as you have different parking lots, okay? Let's hold that argument, it can be yours, let's agree to disagree on that one, that we don't bring it back up.
Well, the FAR is 0.4, you can build a pretty big house.
0.40 would be,
Of 80,000, of 120,000? It's a pretty big building. You'd be able, on an 80,000 square foot lot at 0.4, you're permitted an FAR of 32,000 square feet. So you could build a pretty big house.
I'm surprised it hasn't been built yet by one of your clients, it will be, we'll be there. All right, just
Which
so.
one of my clients, Ms. DeFrancesco?
I met, you have a little clients with the big houses, right, it wasn't.
Oh, I do.
It wasn't a negative.
Like the client that you just acknowledged in the previous hearing had one of the smaller houses in the village.
All right, come on, it's late, it wasn't meant that way, don't get up there.
Let's move on.
We're trying to get through
Right,
this
so not
tonight.
only could you build a 24,000 square foot, then you could build a 32,000 square feet, and on 120, if you were to apply 40% of that, pretty, even bigger than 24,000.
Okay, so what, your variance asking for the 27,000 square foot lot is incorrect, has to be corrected, the language has to be corrected, am I right?
I believe Ms. Smith indicated that she did not revise the
Right,
application
so
to
I'm saying,
reflect the
we know that
decrease.
that has to be done. So, Dan, is that something we can just do to make on our minutes right now, to make that change on that? Is that a major thing or not, can we just correct it?
If the reverse were happening, I'd be more concerned.
That's what I thought. So since it's less, I think we're fine with just making that correction. Okay, one small step at a time.
I concur.
My God, 2 small steps at a time. Mr. Chairman, I have no further, I can't handle any further questions. It's all.
Well,
I have a question.
just remain calm. Everybody remain calm. Yes, Mr. Katz.
Mr. Carvin, is it the intention of the applicants here that after everything is approved, assuming it will be approved or could be approved, and the planning board does what you want it to do, then the lots will be merged into one ownership?
Absolutely.
It will be merged to one, so
Absolutely.
would it be offensive then to give one partner, to give the other partner a deed now, a conditional deed that, therefore everyone would be happy that it's one ownership?
It doesn't sound like something that is problematic to me, but it's certainly not something that I would have the authority to say that someone is gonna go give a deed to someone to hold in escrow. What I can stand behind is the representations that we've made, as well as the map note, that's been, in it's pretty clear language as it is, that the lots will need to be merged. If you wanna make your resolution even more clear, that the variances are null and void and of zero force and effect, if the lot lines are not merged and this plan is not approved by the planning board, we certainly have no objection to you making that as ironclad and as many belts and suspenders. It's not an issue for us. It's just that if we were to go and convey the lot now, and the LLC were to convey it to Reisman personally, or Reisman conveys interest to the LLC, and the plan doesn't get approved, we now would need to come back to the village of Airmont with a proposed subdivision.
Right. I understand
So
that.
it's needlessly convoluted, but in terms of I think what the county's interested in, what Mr. Krashauer's interested in, what we're interested in, and what you're interested in, at the end of the day is all the same thing, which is there be one owner and one lot. And I'm happy to make whatever representation you need from me to assure you that at the conclusion of this, upon approval, there's one owner and there's one lot. So whatever you need from me to make that clear, clearer than I'm making it right now, I'm happy to furnish you with, or Mr. Krashauer with, or the planning board with, or or issue a covenant. You know, I know we've used covenants in the past to make certain representations. Whatever you need.
Dan, would that satisfy us? If one owner were to hold in escrow the deed for the other, so that eventually it will be one?
I mean, you gotta look at this as what, will, not just the two applicants, it's what will ultimately occur. Ultimately, the two applicants are probably going to do a new deed. They will, presumably, disclaim the lot lines, merge the lots, and then convey a deed to the yeshiva. This is not, as I've said, anything I've ever seen before. Marty has been doing this longer than I have. It's something that he's never seen before.
I've never seen it.
But I can't argue with the fact that ultimately, if the merger doesn't occur and you are careful with the condition that the variance will be deemed null and void if the merger does not occur, I think it should be all right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dan.
All right, that clears things up. Okay, we have an open public hearing on this, so if any member of the public
Is still away?
chooses to comment, this would be the time.
Okay.
Ma'am, very patient.
My name is Patricia Hozier. I live on 6 Skyline Court.
And you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be true?
Yes.
Thank you. Right ahead.
I'm not an engineer or anything, but does this open the door for other properties be bought and merged?
Good question.
And
Yes. The answer is always yes.
I wanna live in my home. I don't wanna live next to school. You know, stuff like that.
You know, properties, requests can be made.
Okay.
You know, I could request to, purchase my next door neighbor's house and then ask for a unification of the lots. I might get denied, but I could ask. Is that correct?
There is no reason why any merger of two lot lines would ever be denied. If you own both properties and you wanna put them into, I've done it many times.
But does that open up the?
What it does
You
is
could do
there
it
are
without
zoning requirements.
any approvals.
Well, that's why I was,
Yeah.
the purchase of the two lots, let's say you have a half acre and 2/3 of an acre, and you buy the house next door and just use the land and put it together. If you have enough property where currently, I believe it's 2 acres on a school, some areas, depending on the building, might be more or less, but if enough land is joined, schools have to be in residential areas. They are never in commercial, so if enough land is joined, it can happen.
But I mean, like, how many
There is-
square footage, like, in a town?
There's,
Maybe it's for school.
at this time, my understanding is there's no limitation on how many schools can be built in an area, if that's your question. Dan, am I correct? I don't believe there is conflict.
Yeah, and I'll give you a perfect example. New York State has a law called the Padovan Act.
Oh, I remember that one.
And according to the Padovan Act, the only rationale for denying a group home is if there's an oversaturation of group homes in the area. There have been cases where there were, I'm throwing out a number, 10 group homes in a half-mile radius. No oversaturation. There's never been a case where that provision was ever used by a court to deny a group home. It's a similar concept.
Yeah, the gentleman had a comment.
Okay.
Your name,
Stephen
sir?
Klein.
Stephen Klein?
Klein.
At Klein. And where do you live?
73 Regina, and you know, whatever, yes, I agree to all your,
Tell us the
all your
truth.
truthful terms.
Thank you. Go right
Okay.
ahead.
First of all, this already happened, the merger of properties. We already have an example of it. It's on South Muncie Road, okay? That school where two properties were merged, and it's the prefabricated building, okay? So once that was approved, the increase in the commercial traffic in this residential area where the infrastructure is already super saturated, it cannot handle more of this, okay? Now, this particular, how many buildings in the village are 24, 25, 20, 27,000 square feet? The Costco? The Walmart maybe? Okay, this is a 24,000 square foot structure that's going to be placed in a residential area. You know, it was great when those people were concerned about, you know, that, you know, for the small variance for the house, that they moved here to, you know, because they wanted certain aspects that of underdevelopment. They didn't want overdevelopment. My God, there is nowhere to go on South Muncie Road. People use it to run for recreation, and the traffic is already unbearable, all right? Just on the merits. What is it, 80% of the homes on this side of Cherry Lane, on the side of Cherry Lane that go back to Route 59, 80% of them are maybe less than 3,500 square feet, maybe 85%, 27,000, whatever the hell it is, 27,000 square feet, and they're worried about bus turnarounds. I'm worried about, and how about the traffic study? Does it include the percentage, the increase in percentage of traffic accidents at the intersection of College Road and Route 59 since the other school went in? All right, and what is it? I don't know how many square feet.
I'm just curious, which other school?
I'm not sure if you can hear me, I'm sorry.
I can hear you.
I know, I'm just making a joke.
No, which other school?
Yeah, the Lubavitch. It's
Lubavitch.
You know, and it would be good, you know, you guys are all on this. When was the last time you were down South Muncie Road to look at that? Okay, there's a sign that says no left-hand turn. All right, I mean, I can't provide you the photographic evidence, but, you know, when you do that, when you make a left-hand turn where it says no left-hand turn, that's a moving violation if you get caught doing it.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly ignored sign. Look, the roads in this area are not made for the increase in commercial traffic, and to shove a project like this down the throats of the people who live here is flat out wrong. And the level of pollution of the buses and the cars and all that other stuff that's going to affect the people who live there, it's flat out wrong. It is just wrong. 27,000. I mean, when I said, is it 2,700? Is it 5,000, 10,000. And it suggests that there's a huge amount of indifference towards the people who live here already to even propose a project like that.
Thank you. Okay,
Are we entitled to any of that information,
which,
like the traffic study?
You gotta
I'm
protect
reading
us.
what we got from planning.
right,
Okay, and it's saying that we need to take this into consideration, that into consideration, and yet as usual,
Nobody
zoning
knows
board
this is
doesn't get any
dead
of
of
the
the night.
information to
Nobody
take into consideration. It talks about the density, the infrastructure, and everything else.
well,
The
that's,
plan is advising us, I don't know if it's
that's sort
30
of becomes,
buses or 50.
Lori, those things sort of become, you know, the purview on the planning board.
Well, no, this is to us. And what I'm saying is the acting commissioner of planning send to the zoning board of appeals for their reason to take into consideration the following items when making our decision. And I am saying we are limited in zoning forever having those items. And I don't know if we're entitled to see any of them. And I'm asking the question to my attorney, not to this attorney. I don't know if we are or we're not in making these decisions.
Well,
Excuse me.
Who's gonna get killed?
the planning board, already made a secret determination. How long ago was it? After January?
No, it's before. I think it was November or October of last year.
And there were traffic studies done,
Peter's looking for a cup,
The-
a cup set.
Oh, there's no cups?
even though, it's a comment that's in the, GML address
I'll get you. What are these two?
the zoning board, it's really a planning related
He's
comment.
getting it.
And, I can't recall with absolute certainty,
It's 3 men to get you a
but I'm pretty confident, that the fire district did review this. I can't say for certain whether or not the, Rockland County Office of Fire and Emergency Services did.
It was Muncie Fire Department that reviewed it.
But it
And the
could
village-
be
and the
a
village fire.
condition, that, the, zoning board, imposes that, the planning board, comply with comment number 5 of the GML dated January 19, 2017.
I was looking more at comment number 6, which is my bigger concern, which I think was Mr.
Oh, that's definitely in your purview.
Well, that's where my confusion is, Dan. In our purview, this evaluation must consider. So if granting a zoning variance, God bless all of you, thank you 3 gentlemen, everyone for trying.
Tough job.
If they are telling us that we must consider every part of this, which should be planning, the sewer, the stormwater management, the
Well,
roads, the
I mean,
congestion.
I think the response to that would be, that the planning board did consider that, or, you know, that you're not overriding it, that those considerations were made by the planning board when they undertook their seeker analysis.
So we have to then accept their secret analysis without knowing what it was based on and judge this on our own side.
The planning board does seeker for the zoning board.
Okay.
This is not new.
I know, this is just clarification,
Yeah.
because of the strength of this letter, that we are already overriding parts of it that I need for us to look at carefully.
Yeah, but I think if you look at the letter, the GML for the single-family home, it is almost identical to this.
I don't believe it.
So are you agreeing again? I can't handle it.
I don't believe they made this for the,
All right.
could be habit forming.
Please no. One last question, Dan. Even though the property now merged will be 2.73 acres, to relate back to the question that the resident had earlier, this is an R35 zone. Now, I understand that the property is more than the R35, the 35,000 square feet because of the merge, but it's still an R35 zone. And an R35 zone doesn't have the rights for certain things that an R80 zone does, a 2-acre zone. I hate to bring it up this way, but I don't know how else to ask it. The 2 acres for the school can occur in any zone if there are 2 acres? It doesn't have to be in an R80 zone or something like that? Whereby, again, to the question that the resident asked, if lots just merge, can they change the use within a zoning?
Yes,
That
just
was
ask
the
the
question.
Justice Department.
What?
Just ask the Justice Department.
Okay, that's, I'm just trying to,
That-
because that was
that's
your
where the question
question.
should be addressed to.
The Justice Department, Dan?
Yeah.
Which Justice Department?
United States.
United States.
What is that?
That's where.
What are you inferring by that?
They're the ones who determined it.
I think he's just stating that the use is a use which is permitted in the zone as part of the code for.
The Justice Department imposed it upon the village.
No, well, that makes it.
And therefore, it's a use which is permitted in the zone on the 80,000 square feet. In your case,
I don't know a zone where it's
119.
not permitted.
So, right,
In the village.
right.
Oh, but only in our village? So do we have an
Only
argument,
that
do
village that I know
we have an argument on
With the Department of Justice? I think you settled
that?
that.
Just a question. Just a question, if this is a single, in fairness to the village residents, if this is something that's imposed only in one area, that's all.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
I always have
You
these
guys are just
interesting
first learning of this?
I know that the Justice, I've been living in this village forever, I know that the Justice Department, some years ago, I think it was back in the 90s, made some judgments against the village of Fairmont.
Based on
with
this property.
respect to, the zoning. I get it. I get it.
Twice.
Yeah. Okay. Any other person in the audience have a comment? If not,
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And seeker was already handled by the planning board, so we don't deal with it.
Any questions, board folks, persons?
Well, the board has to consider, a resolution, for comment number 5. Comment number 6, in particular, the, last sentence, last 2 sentences. And comment number 7.
Could you repeat,
5, 6, and 7.
what was your statement prior to 5, 6, and 7?
What has to
Consider a
consider
resolution.
resolution to override, comment number 5, that, a review was completed by Muncie and Tolman, or just Muncie?
Muncie.
Do we have a copy of
Uh,
that in, or do you?
Fire
have it?
district.
It's in the package that you asked for.
But that, the planning board, will, comply with comment number 5 with regard to, the review being completed by, the County Office of Fire and Emergency Services. Comment number 6, if you're, if you wish to override that, the basis for that would be, at least with regard to the second part, which is really the only part that has a directive, that the evaluation was already considered by the village planning board at the time that it did its seeker review. And comment number 6, that the applicant proposes merging the lots on the site plan, and that if you were to approve the variances, that they would be deemed null and void if the merger did not occur.
Okay.
Those are not recommendations. That is, if you thought it was appropriate to override these, that would be the legal basis for doing so.
Oh, we didn't even cover any of the other normal stuff.
Plus any favorable vote, if there was a favorable vote, would have to be by a 4-person majority, is that correct?
On the override, yes, not on the underlying application.
We'd have to override first, though.
Okay.
And what are we actually voting on?
The development coverage, the
Talking
development
about-
coverage variance. Just to make it for this page.
Okay, and Wanda, this is your second or third plan in reducing that coverage variance? So that this variance is the minimum you could request, there's no other way, like making the building 15,000 square feet less, having less coverage or anything else? Is there any other way to do, seriously? You're asking for, you're still asking, putting aside every other issue, we're back to normal discussion. You're asking for a very large variance. Whether Mr. Carbon believes so or not, percentage-wise, it's a large variance. Can that variance be minimized by reducing the size of the building?
Certainly, the building could be made smaller, but then they would not be able to service the students that they would like to service here. That's going to mean they're going to have several smaller sites around the area with buses going to several different sites rather than one, because they still have to service these children.
They were servicing the children in 8,400 square feet before they went to
No,
24,000.
no. With 8,400 square feet, they would have to use multiple sites. This would be one of 3 or 4 sites that have small buildings on them. By making the bigger building, they're gonna be able to centralize all the kids in one spot and not have buses running all over the area.
But they are taking an entire section of the county, South Muncie Road, and the streets that fall off of it, and congesting them with somewhere probably between 50 and 60 additional buses a day. So by saying that the buses are going to many places doesn't help a gentleman like Mr. Klein who's sitting behind you and says, but his block is being affected. I appreciate the comment, but I'm saying
I mean,
people live
it's
everywhere.
it's always possible to make something smaller. The question is what the what the trade-offs would be. In this particular case, given that the applicant has a 120,000 square feet of property, it's a very, very robust site where 80,000 is required. It provides the opportunity to have a full and good and appropriate school and do all these circulation elements. And I would note that a lot of the driver here of the development coverage is not, you know, obviously there's the footprint of the building itself, but a lot of this is in fact the parking and the circulation, all those other things. This was discussed, Member DeFrancesco, this trade-off extensively with the planning board and with the CDRC, which is if we do all these things and we want to have the site laid out and in these fashions that the agencies were asking and everything else.
Well, we're not that agency though, and you have to appreciate the fact that we stay out of those agencies and those conversations to be unbiased and look at this separately. So your discussions with them, which came to this point, really are not part of our knowledge base.
Right, well, that's why we provided to you the information
Or
from
our
the fire
decision making on what they decided.
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
those agencies were your engineer and your planner and the relevant
I
fire
understand
inspectors.
that.
Yes, Laura, all right, yes.
I'm looking at this site and I'm asking your opinion on it. We haven't heard from you, Marty. I need you to take over. I'm tired.
You tired? I mean, my only opinion at this point is this is a huge request in relationship to the requirements. And I'm battling with that in my head. That's exactly
saying-
what's in my head. I'm sharing it. You know, to purchase this property and then to have the intention of putting in almost 25,000 square foot building and filling up this acreage with
Impervious, all this.
with
back-
needed parking spaces. Obviously, it's a school building and you need parking spaces and turnarounds and everything like that.
It's definitely safety.
I'm thinking out loud, maybe this isn't the appropriate land to build such an institution on. I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. Now you know what I'm thinking.
I was gonna say, my concern originally was where it is sitting on the slope. I don't even know how the buses are gonna come in there. I pass through this every day. You're going right over the tracks, right into here. It's a difficult site. I don't know. Arthur, voices.
Well, I mean, the village has a planning board. The planning board are the experts on this. And, they're satisfied with this. So it's not our job to do what the planning board does. It's our job to do the zoning board. They're here for one zoning issue, and that's the.
A major zoning issue. A
Okay,
developmental cover.
but what you're concerned about are planning board issues, like, you know, this is a very big project, how is it gonna fit in here? And that's the planning board's job. And whatever issues the
No, it's
planning.
not. Our zoning board is for the community. It's not as limited as you're trying to make it, in my understanding. I
It's
don't
for
know.
zoning issues for the community, not for planning issues. That, we have other people who know a whole lot more about this stuff than we do. And they have the engineers, and they have the planners, and they have.
All right, well, here's a question. Before we even get to this, we need to override this. If this doesn't get overridden, we don't even get to this. Correct? So we're gonna
Is
cover
that
court of
correct
works.
procedurally, Dan?
Which part are you talking about?
Five,
six,
six,
and
seven.
seven.
We have to override that before we can go to a vote on the plans, correct? The variance?
Those conditions aren't overridden, we're bound by them.
Overriding 5 has already been completed, so that we can do that resolution easily. 5 has been completed, they've
Right.
shown the.
Right.
So maybe, Mr. Chairman, we should override 5 and take that out.
Equation.
Yeah,
Oh,
take
you
this
want
one
the
out of
copy
the
here?
equation.
Let me have a motion.
You
I
can have
have
it, right?
make a
I have
motion
extra.
that this zoning board of appeals resolves that in regard to paragraph 5 of the Rockland County Department of Planning letter dated January 19,
You want one, Rhonda?
2017, this board,
I have extras.
disagrees as this has already been complete as making this an option for both.
Well,
You
we
can help me out there.
propose that, a review has been completed by, which
Muncie Fire Department.
Muncie Fire District, during the planning review process, and that, the, Rockland County Office of Fire and Emergency Services, review should be done, at the planning board level, with regard to site plan.
And I so stated in his elegant words.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried unanimously.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Right.
No, they're talking.
The motion?
No, I heard the motion, I didn't hear who, you made the motion.
I made the motion.
Okay, that's the
I
part.
second the motion, and everybody voted in the affirmative.
It's talking about, in order to.
Next, would be number 6.
Not necessarily. I'd like to handle number 7 next.
Go ahead.
Wait, you're going to 7?
7 is easy for me to
Okay.
handle.
Go ahead, handle it. Go ahead.
Okay, I make a motion that the zoning board of appeals has a resolution to override paragraph 7 of the Rockland County Department of Planning letter dated January 19th, 2017, in as much as the separate ownership of the 2 properties as noted in the affidavit will be subject to completion of the merger or avoidance of any variances given. And I so move.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
You would.
You
We have
did.
a second. Let's call the roll on that one.
Okay.
In favor
In favor, Lori?
of what I just proposed, yes.
Charlie?
In favor.
Scott?
In favor.
Arthur?
In favor of Lori's motion.
You're going to abstain?
No, I'm gonna vote no.
Not abstain. You don't have to do anything, I forgot.
Okay, then
Okay.
shut up.
No, I'm not saying
That's
that.
as far
I
as
would
I
never
can
say
go.
that.
I don't know about.
90% of it, what is it, 90% is showing up, some, 95% is showing up, 99%.
I know, okay.
Okay.
90% of life is showing
All
up.
right, and what about number 6? Want to handle that?
There's some like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a topic.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
not-
the only aspect that would require an override would be the last 2 sentences.
That's the ones that I'm not sure if I wanna do.
And once again, those are really planning, related issues which the planning board had to and did consider in adopting its negative declaration under secret.
So I think that, based upon what Dan's saying, maybe there's some comfort level with overriding that?
But just make
I
it
don't know.
clear, the last 2 sentences are the only things that you're overriding.
Okay, which means we are not overriding the beginning paragraph, which is what? Okay.
Correct.
Okay. I make a motion that in regard to paragraph 6 of the Rockland County Department of Planning letter dated January 19th, 2017, that this board overrides the last two sentences of that paragraph as our planning board has addressed this during their secret action. And I so moved.
I'll second that.
Suzanne?
Okay, hold on, I'm just writing.
Okay.
Okay, Lori,
I'm in favor.
Charlie,
In favor.
Scott,
In favor.
and Arthur.
In favor of Lori's motion.
I'll declare the motion carried. Okay.
Not quite.
It's
Almost.
okay for me, I gotta sleep.
No, this,
All right, now the application in and of itself. Does anybody have any further discussion on the application, given we tidied up some of the procedural business here?
Let's pass my laptop.
I don't care. It's your deal.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the application of Sheila Collins Stoneman to receive a 16.2% variance of elemental coverage from Article 3, Section 210, Table 3, Attachment 6, the bulk requirements, limit construction, maintenance, and use of, we're using 27,000, is that the number we're using?
Or, no, don't, what's
24,740.
24,740.
Of 24,740 square feet, a two-story building, a religious instruction for boys at kindergarten to 8th grade. The property is located on the east side of South Muncie Road, approximately 250 feet south of Muncie Heights Road. Lot is designated as section 56.18, block 2, and lot 48 and 49.1 on the town around Poe tax map. The property is located in the R35 zoning district and contains 2.79 acres. The street address is 2-4 South Muncie Road, Muncie, New York, 109. Should it be 52?
Yeah.
No, what does it say there?
82.
They're using the Tallman Post Office as their
They,
zip code. That's appropriate.
Not when it's Muncie.
not when it's Muncie.
that was my error then.
It can't be both. 10982 has to walk to the post office.
So
There
then
is no
call
mail
it,
delivery.
then it's
Just leave out the
Tallman,
zoning?
then it's Tallman, New York, all right? I mean, I don't think it's a big
That's
deal.
not, is that Tallman? I don't think that is Tallman.
10982?
No, I don't think South Muncie Road can be Tallman.
No, it's
It
Airmont, New
can,
York, because
well-
we have the jurisdiction.
No,
no.
Tallman is off
524,
Cherry
527,
Lane
plus
and
fours.
Annette Lane. I don't think Tallman
Pretty sure.
covers the
I think-
area.
I
If it
think-
wasn't Tallman, they wouldn't be here.
Hold it. I think the confusion is very simple. They're using the Muncie Post Office to get mail, you know,
109.
so it's 10982.
No, there is, no, let
No,
me,
it's 10.
Dan, do I have to put?
no,
a
let me
zone?
explain
Yeah,
something.
Dan, was it a typo?
Sorry.
It
All right,
could be,
hold it,
I'm
hold it.
looking, I am looking,
Okay, all kidding aside, the
I'm not kidding.
Tallman coastal area, which is a small area off Cherry Lane that was serviced by delivery and still is in your post office, I am 99% sure does not go to the other side of
Everything on here
Christmas Hill
says
Road,
like
South
Wilson,
Muncie,
doesn't give me a
which
good
has
job.
always been in the village of Muncie. It
Right,
has
it's like
nothing to
wood-
do
Tallman's
with the
like
village
woodland
of Tallman.
and those.
Could never have been Tallman. If it's under Tallman, it's all wrong. It was never Tallman.
I want to amend my, motion to delete any reference to a zip code.
Fine, that's
Okay.
fine. I
Well,
mean,
no, I have more of a problem if it's what are we calling it? It is.
Airmont.
Airmont, New York.
It's in the village,
Airmont,
it's
New
in the
York.
municipality of Airmont, for sure. That I can tell you.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
why our
There is
zoning
no
board is
10982
here.
in Airmont.
It's in
We're
the
safe,
village.
we're safe it's in Airmont?
It's in the village of Airmont.
Right, after all that work trying to get the post office to deliver mail to people that was addressed as
I'm
Airmont, you
satisfied
call it
with
Airmont.
that. Let's,
We should not be
continue.
allowed to put that building
I'm,
there.
I'm
That's
looking
the
to see the
bottom line.
paperwork.
Don't get it sh-
It's possible it's a typo on my part, I can't answer.
It's okay, you can proceed, Mr. Katz.
Again, I asked to delete the zip code from my motion. and leave it at Airmont, New York, and whatever it is, and that is my motion. He's a second.
Greatest motion ever, whatever it is, it is.
It's in Montebello.
All right, come on, guys, it's getting late. Do I have a second for Mr. Katz's motion, to approve the application?
To approve
Did
the
I hear that?
application, yes, I
Okay.
said it originally, yeah.
Do I have a second for that application?
I'll second it.
You will. Okay, we have a second. Is there any discussion on Mr. Katz's motion? There being none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Lori?
I'm gonna hold off my comments for a moment. I'm tired.
Okay. Charlie?
I vote no. The size of the variance is large, and the impact on the community with bus traffic, moving of kids, consolidating of schools to bring more students in. I feel it's excessive for the area. Therefore, I vote no.
Okay. Scott?
I'm going to concur with my fellow board member. I'm going to vote no on this as well. I believe this is too large and too big for the area and for the roads and the traffic. And I believe they can come back with a smaller version. And so I vote no.
Okay. Arthur?
I'm gonna have to disagree with my learned colleagues and vote yes. I think their concerns have all been addressed, or should have been addressed by the planning board. And the only zoning board issue here is not unreasonable, and therefore I would vote to approve this application.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Lori?
I vote no on the application based on an 81% increase over maximum permitted development coverage as stated in the Rockland County Department of Planning letter dated January of 2017. And with the concern that the infrastructure we have there cannot accommodate this in a residential density area, with a concern that additional traffic environmentally will affect the health and welfare of the community and the neighborhood, and because I do believe that this can be accomplished by the applicant in other ways so it does not harm his ability to do business, I believe it can be done probably without any variances by minimizing the building, and in which case it would be his right to use the property in that way. Therefore, I have no to the motion.
Okay.
We got one no, we have two no's, we have three no's, we have one affirmative. The motion is denied. The application is
Can
denied.
I ask the board to, make clear that, what their feelings are on the use itself?
Just for
as opposed
clarification,
to- yeah.
Denton, as stated in my comments, I believe that the school can exist there comfortably, that they have other alternatives besides the variance by slightly reducing the size of the building. It is nothing to do with that. It has to do with the size and the need for the large variance that I am voting no.
I concur with that. It is a right to use that for a school, but it's not a right to overtax a community with transport, clogging roads, and making it an unhealthy situation for everybody else. But by right, they could be there at the school.
Scott?
I also agree that they can use their property for a school, but at this time, it is too large, and for the area, and for the traffic and the roads, and for the community.
Arthur?
Again, I disagree with my learned colleagues here. The use for a school is allowed. Scattering the school all over the place means you're scattering the traffic associated with the school all over the place. And that will increase the danger on the roads, not diminish it. I think that having schools in an area is considered a good thing, and helps improve the whole environment of the village. I think further that the issues that are raised are not zoning board issues, but planning board issues, which have been dealt at length over a considerable amount of time, considerable amount of meetings by the planning board and their associated talent that they have there. And the point that they're here is because they were forced here by the planning board. And this was not your original plan, but forced into this plan by the planning board in their analysis of what's important here. And the fact that the village is contradicting itself, basically, that the planning board is telling them to do one thing and we're saying no, so it leaves them in kind of a limbo. So I don't believe this is the proper way to go forward, and I would approve this application.
Well, it's entitled to a statement.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Next meeting?
Just let us know when the decision is filed. Thank you.
Because they're ad hoc members, you only need 5 members.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
I know it's very late, I just want to say a couple of things in new business, real quick, and then we can dismiss. It was my thought to change the commencement time of our meetings to 7:30, a half hour earlier, but in speaking with Dan, our counsel, that might be difficult for him. So we've been meeting at 8 o'clock for 100 years. I guess we're kind of used to it. It might be 10:30 if we were at 7:30. It might be. But lengthy meetings like this are also, fewer and further between. So I don't know what to say. Could we start a meeting at 7:45, or is that? Would that whack out the entire community?
No, it's either 7:30 or 8 o'clock, let's keep things normal.
You're the chairman, and then whenever you.
No, just a suggestion.
I haven't seen any at 7:45, but.
Nobody will
Does
know.
that work?
Dan, would it be helpful for us to maintain the commencement time of the meeting? Because we certainly need your participation always at 8 o'clock. I mean, we'll live.
Yeah, and, Suzanne knows better than I, but, it's rare that we have this many applications.
On its own, yeah.
Just excessive.
We usually don't have more than 2. Usually.
Many times we're out of here at 9, 9:30.
I don't even know 10 o'clock. Right now,
All right.
I don't have anything new for June.
We'll leave it. We don't like this in deference to count,
I don't have anything new submitted for June. However, well, I don't think we're gonna make it. So, yeah. But, if I could
I
just
make
say.
a motion to adjourn.
Would you wait?
I'm saying one thing.
Calm down.
Right now, Lori and Charlie already have it, and Arthur, because you're on the comprehensive plan. Every board is now going to have everybody's gonna have a village email. They want the boards to be using a village email. So in the next week or 2, I will be emailing you your email that was set up with your password, and it is not a password you can change. It is the password assigned to you.
Really?
Thanks to Mr. Montgomery, because he's the person that designated it.
Hope it's a
So,
good one.
Lori and I have, Lisa Ann and I have the master list, should you lose your password, but I will be sending you your email and your password individually with instructions on how to log on.
Okay.
And then eventually I'm gonna change all the group, when I send everything out to the group
So
with
we'll
the
use
village
the email.
email.
Okay. Does
Well, I
anybody
can
care?
go with that to my other email, right?
Anybody care to make a motion to?
Yeah, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting, please.
Is there a second to the motion? All those in favor of adjournment?
Who seconded that? I didn't see it. Who made the second? I didn't hear it.
I'll second it.
Okay, I couldn't hear it.
Alrighty.
Thank you. Yeah.
See you later.
This is the building inspector.